What happens when a desperate duke marries a woman the world calls a monster, only to discover she's the one thing he can't control? Stay until the end to see how a marriage born from deception becomes the most dangerous love story in England. Drop a like if you're ready for this storm, and comment which city you're watching from. The chandelier above Sebastian Blackthorne's head cost more than most men earned in a lifetime, and it was about to be repossessed. He stood at the altar of St. Margaret's Cathedral, back rigid, jaw clenched so tight his molars ached. 300 guests filled the pews behind him, lords and ladies who'd come not to celebrate, but to witness his humiliation. They whispered behind gloved hands and fans. He could hear every word. Blackthorne's finally done it, sold himself to save that rotting estate. I heard the girl's face is scarred beyond recognition. Burns, they say. Poor bastard. All that pride, and look where it's landed him. Sebastian didn't turn around. Didn't give them the satisfaction. His hands, clasped behind his back, were white-knuckled. The morning coat felt like a noose. The white rose pinned to his lapel might as well have been a funeral flower. He was 28 years old, Duke of Ashford, heir to a legacy that stretched back 2 centuries. And he was about to marry a woman he'd never seen, whose family had bought him like livestock at market. The organ began. Every head turned toward the cathedral doors. Sebastian forced himself to breathe. This was the price. The Whitmores had money, new money, shipbuilding money, the kind that smelled of coal smoke and ambition. They wanted a title. He needed their fortune to keep Ashford Hall from crumbling into the Thames. Simple transaction. He'd done worse in his life. He'd survived this too. The doors opened. She appeared at the far end of the aisle, a figure in white lace and silk, her face hidden behind a veil so thick it might as well have been a shroud. 2 bridesmaids flanked her, but she walked alone, her pace steady and deliberate. No father to give her away. No family procession. Just her. The whispers rose like a wave. Is that her? She's tall. I didn't expect. The veil's so heavy. What are they hiding? Sebastian's stomach turned. He'd been told the essentials. Clara Whitmore, 24, only child of Edmund Whitmore, shipping magnate. Dowry large enough to rebuild Ashford twice over. The rest, her appearance, her condition, had been left vague. Deliberately, he now understood. She reached the altar, stopped in front of him. Up close, he could see the outline of her through the veil. A silhouette, nothing more. She was taller than he'd expected. Her posture was perfect, shoulders back, chin up. No trembling, no hesitation. For a woman rumored to be disfigured and desperate, she carried herself like she owned the damn cathedral. The officiant cleared his throat. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. Sebastian stopped listening. He focused on breathing, on not running, on the mental arithmetic he'd done 100 times. Debts versus dowry, survival versus pride, the cost of keeping his family name from turning to ash. If any person can show just cause why they may not be joined together, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. Silence. Heavy, expectant silence. Sebastian almost laughed. Just cause? Where did he start? Then we shall proceed. The officiant looked at Sebastian. Do you, Sebastian Charles Blackthorne, Duke of Ashford, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. The words came out clipped, mechanical. The officiant turned to the bride. And do you, Clara Elizabeth Whitmore? I do. Her voice cut through the cathedral like a blade, clear, strong, no trace of shame or submission. Sebastian's eyes narrowed. That wasn't the voice of a broken woman. Then, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. The officiant paused, glancing nervously between them. You may kiss the bride. Sebastian's throat tightened. This was the moment he'd been dreading. He'd have to lift the veil, have to see what the Whitmores had been hiding, have to perform affection in front of 300 vultures waiting to see him flinch. He reached for the veil. Clara didn't move, didn't help him. Just stood there, still as a statue, while he found the edge of the lace and began to lift. The fabric rose, inch by inch. He saw her chin first, smooth, unblemished, then her lips, full, set in a line that wasn't quite a smile. Her nose, straight, elegant. And then her eyes. Sebastian froze. The cathedral went dead silent. Clara Whitmore was beautiful, not pretty, not conventionally attractive. Beautiful in a way that hit like a fist to the chest. High cheekbones, flawless skin, dark hair swept back in an intricate style that must have taken hours. And her eyes, gray, sharp, unflinching, locked onto his with an intensity that made his pulse stutter. There were no scars, no burns, no disfigurement. The room erupted. What? She's not… Is this some kind of joke? The rumors were all lies. Sebastian couldn't move, couldn't think. He was supposed to kiss her. That's what they did at weddings, but he couldn't make his body obey because his brain was too busy trying to process what the hell was happening. Clara tilted her head slightly. Problem, Your Grace? Her voice was low, almost amused, like this was funny to her. You're not… He stopped, realizing how it would sound. Hideous? She supplied. No, I'm not. But the rumors were very useful. She said it casually, like she was discussing the weather. Are you going to kiss me, or should we skip to the part where you regret this? The guests were in chaos now, people standing, craning their necks, demanding answers. The officiant looked ready to faint. The bridesmaids had backed away, eyes wide. Sebastian's mind raced. This was a trap. It had to be. The Whitmores had lied, or Clara had lied, about everything. But why? What possible reason? Your Grace, Clara's tone sharpened. You're making a scene. He almost laughed. He was making a scene? But she was right. Every second he stood here gaping like an idiot, he lost more ground, more control. He was Sebastian Blackthorne. He didn't lose control. He leaned in and kissed her. It was supposed to be quick, perfunctory, a gesture for the crowd. But the moment his lips touched hers, something shifted. She didn't pull back, didn't soften. She met him with the same unflinching intensity she'd shown since walking down the aisle, and for a split second, Sebastian forgot where he was. Forgot the crowd, the whispers, the cathedral. All he felt was heat and challenge, and the unsettling certainty that he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. He pulled back. Clara's eyes were still on his, unreadable. Well, she said quietly, just for him. That's done. The officiant, recovering his composure, gestured weakly toward the aisle. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Duke and Duchess of Ashford. Applause came in scattered, confused bursts. Most people were still too shocked to react properly. Sebastian took Clara's arm. She allowed it, barely, and they turned to face the crowd. The walk down the aisle was the longest of his life. Faces blurred past, some confused, some delighted at the scandal, some openly hostile. He recognized Lord Pemberton in the third row, barely concealing a smirk. The man had been circling Ashford Hall like a vulture for months, waiting for Sebastian to fail so he could buy the estate at auction. Smile, Clara murmured beside him. You look like you're walking to the gallows. I might as well be. Dramatic. I expected better from a duke. He shot her a glance. She wasn't smiling either, but there was something in her expression, satisfaction maybe, that made his blood heat for entirely different reasons. They reached the cathedral doors, stepped out into blinding June sunlight. The crowd spilled out behind them, and Sebastian could already hear the gossip igniting like wildfire. A carriage waited at the bottom of the steps, black and polished, the Ashford crest emblazoned on the door. Sebastian handed Clara inside without a word, then climbed in after her. The door slammed shut. The driver cracked the whip. And suddenly, they were alone. Clara settled back against the velvet seat, adjusting her skirts with practiced precision. She didn't look at him, didn't speak, just stared out the window like she was sightseeing. Sebastian couldn't take it anymore. What the hell was that? She turned slowly, one eyebrow arched. A wedding. Did you miss that part? You know what I mean. His voice was low, dangerous. The rumors, the lies, your face is apparently offensive to you. That's not… He bit off the words, forced himself to slow down. I was told you were disfigured, that you'd been injured. That's why the Whitmores were so eager to… He stopped, realizing how that sounded. Clara's smile was razor thin, So eager to pay someone to take me off their hands? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. She crossed her arms. Let me guess. My father told you I was damaged goods, scarred, maybe burned, desperate for any marriage, no matter how cold. And you, honorable, self-sacrificing Duke Sebastian, agreed to the match because you needed the money and figured at least you'd have an obedient, grateful wife who'd stay out of your way. Every word was true, and hearing it laid out like that made him feel like an ass. That's not... Please don't insult me by lying. Clara leaned forward, and for the first time he saw real steel in her eyes. You married me for money. I married you for protection. Let's not pretend this is anything else. Protection. The word hung in the air like smoke. Protection from what? She didn't answer immediately, turned back to the window. That's my business. You're my wife now. Your business is my business. Clara laughed, a short, bitter sound. Is that how you think this works? That's how marriage works. Not this one. She met his gaze again. You want honesty, Your Grace? Fine. I spread those rumors myself, every single one. Told people I was hideous, that I'd been burned in a fire, that I was damaged beyond repair. Made myself unmarriageable to every eligible man in England. Sebastian stared at her. Why would you? Because I needed a husband who wouldn't expect anything from me, who'd be too disgusted or too pitying to touch me, who'd take the money and leave me alone. She tilted her head. Turns out, I miscalculated. You're not as indifferent as I thought. You played me. I played everyone. You're not special. His hands curled into fists. Do you have any idea what you've done? The scandal this will cause, the questions, will blow over. Clara's tone was dismissive. Society loves a mystery. Give them a week, and they'll invent some tragic romance to explain it all. We'll be yesterday's gossip by the end of the season. And in the meantime? In the meantime, you get your money. I get my title. We both get what we need. She smoothed her skirts again. I'll stay out of your way. You stay out of mine. Simple. Sebastian's jaw tightened. Nothing about this woman was simple. The carriage rattled through London streets, heading toward the train station where they'd board for Ashford Hall. 3 hours in a private car together. Then a lifetime in a crumbling estate, bound to a woman who'd just admitted to orchestrating the biggest con he'd ever witnessed. You think this is going to be easy? He said quietly. Clara looked at him. I think it's going to be exactly what we both agreed to. A transaction. Transactions don't lie to each other. No, they just use each other and call it business. Her smile was cold. Welcome to marriage, Your Grace. The reception at the Whitmore estate was a nightmare dressed in champagne and forced smiles. Edmund Whitmore, Clara's father, held court in the grand ballroom like a king showing off his newest acquisition. He'd built his fortune from nothing, and he wanted everyone to know it. The ballroom was too large, too gilded, too everything. New money screaming for validation. Ah, there's my son-in-law! Edmund boomed as Sebastian and Clara entered. He was a barrel of a man, red-faced and jovial, with the kind of aggressive friendliness that made Sebastian want to punch something. Duke Sebastian Blackthorne, how does it feel to be a married man? Complicated, Sebastian said flatly. Edmund laughed like it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. That's marriage for you, but you've got a good one here. My Clara, sharp as a tack, she'll keep you on your toes. Clara stood beside Sebastian, her expression pleasant and empty. The perfect society mask. Nothing like the woman who'd torn into him in the carriage. Father, you're embarrassing him. Nonsense, a man should be proud of his wife. Edmund clapped Sebastian on the shoulder, hard enough to bruise. You'll take care of her, won't you, Your Grace? The question sounded casual, but there was an edge underneath, a warning. Of course, Sebastian said. Good, good. Edmund's smile didn't reach his eyes. Because if anything were to happen to her, if she were to be unhappy in any way, well, I'm a very protective father. You understand. Sebastian understood perfectly. The money came with strings, and the strings were tied around his neck. Your Grace, Duchess! A woman in purple silk descended on them, all false warmth and sharp eyes. Lady Thornbury, one of London's most notorious gossips. What a surprising ceremony. We were all quite shocked. Were you? Clara's tone was mild. How flattering. The rumors, you see, we'd all heard such terrible things about your condition. But yes, terrible. Clara sipped her champagne. I'm devastated to disappoint you. Lady Thornbury's smile tightened. Of course not, dear. We're all simply relieved you're… well. Her gaze swept over Clara, cataloging every detail. Though one does wonder why such stories would spread if there wasn't some truth to them. People love a tragedy, Clara said, especially one involving a woman. Makes them feel better about their own lives. The words landed like slap. Lady Thornbury's face went red. Sebastian almost smiled. Almost. If you'll excuse us, he said, taking Clara's elbow, I need to speak with my wife. He steered her away before Lady Thornbury could recover. They crossed the ballroom, dodging well-wishers and curious stares, until they reached a relatively quiet corner near the terrace doors. You didn't have to do that, Clara said. Do what? Rescue me. I can handle Lady Thornbury. I noticed. He studied her. You're good at this. The performance. I've had practice. How much practice? Clara's expression shuddered. Enough. A man approached before Sebastian could push further. Young, handsome in a rakish way with blonde hair and a smile that was too familiar. He bowed to Clara. Lady Clara, forgive me. Duchess Ashford. I had to offer my congratulations. Clara's entire body went rigid. Sebastian felt it through her arm, still tucked in his. He looked at the man more carefully. There was something in his eyes. Possessiveness, maybe. Or entitlement. Lord Davenport, Clara said. Her voice was flat. How kind. I was surprised to hear of your engagement, Davenport continued. So sudden, so unexpected. His gaze flicked to Sebastian, dismissive. Though I suppose desperation makes strange bedfellows. Sebastian's hand tightened on Clara's arm. Careful. Oh, forgive me, Your Grace. No offense intended. Davenport's smile widened. I've known Clara for years. We're old friends. Aren't we, darling? Clara said nothing. In fact, Davenport went on, I was quite certain she'd never marry. She always said she preferred independence. Strange how money changes things. Sebastian felt Clara's pulse racing under his fingers, saw the way her jaw clenched. This wasn't just dislike, this was fear. I think you've said enough, Sebastian said quietly. Have I? Davenport leaned closer. Or am I just getting started? Walk away. Or what? You'll challenge me to a duel? Davenport laughed. This isn't the 17th century, Your Grace. We settle things differently now. Sebastian stepped forward, putting himself between Clara and Davenport. I said, walk away. For a moment, Davenport's mask slipped. Sebastian saw real anger underneath, real malice. This man wasn't just a nuisance. He was dangerous. But then Edmund Whitmore appeared, all bluster and forced cheer. Lord Davenport, so glad you could make it. Come, let me introduce you to the ambassador. He steered Davenport away smoothly, but not before the younger man shot Clara one last look, a promise or a threat. Sebastian waited until they were gone, then turned to Clara. Who was that? No one. Don't lie to me. I'm not. Clara pulled her arm free. He's no one. Not anymore. He's the reason, isn't he? The reason you spread the rumors, the reason you needed protection. Clara's eyes met his, and for the first time, he saw something other than ice in them, something raw and real and terrified. Yes, she said quietly. What did he do to you? She looked away. Nothing I couldn't survive. Clara, I don't want to talk about this. She straightened her shoulders, rebuilt her mask. We should circulate. People are watching. She was right. Half the ballroom had their eyes on them, waiting for another scene, another crack in the facade. Sebastian offered his arm. Clara took it, and they danced. Not because they wanted to, not because they trusted each other, but because 300 people were watching, and neither of them knew how to lose. The train to Ashford Hall left at midnight. By the time they boarded, Sebastian's head was pounding from champagne and forced conversation. Clara had changed into a traveling dress, deep green, high-necked, severe. She carried herself like armor. The private car was luxurious by necessity: plush seats that converted to beds, polished wood panels, a small table with crystal decanters. The Ashford crest was embroidered on every surface, a reminder of the legacy Sebastian was barely keeping alive. Clara settled by the window, didn't speak, didn't look at him. Sebastian poured himself a whiskey, drank it in one swallow, poured another. Starting early? Clara's voice was dry. Long day. You could try sleeping. So could you. She turned to him finally, and he saw the exhaustion in her face, the cracks in the armor. She'd been performing just as hard as he had, and it had cost her. What happens now? She asked. We go to Ashford. You settle in. I figure out how to save the estate from bankruptcy. We avoid each other as much as possible. Sounds perfect. Does it? He set down the glass. Because from where I'm sitting, we're trapped in a disaster neither of us wanted, built on lies and desperation, and we'll survive it, Clara cut in. That's what people like us do. We survive. People like us? People who've learned the world doesn't give a damn about what we want. She met his eyes. You think I'm the only one with secrets, Your Grace? You think I don't see the cracks in your foundation? Your estate is failing. Your reputation is hanging by a thread. You married me because you had no other choice. And you married me because you're running from something. Yes. No denial, no deflection, just cold truth. And now we're both stuck with the consequences. The train lurched into motion. London's lights began to fade outside the window. Sebastian studied his new wife, this stranger he'd bound himself to for life. She was right about everything, and that made it worse. They were both desperate, both damaged, both too proud to admit they'd walked into a trap. Tell me one thing, he said. What? Why did you really spread those rumors? And don't tell me it was just about Davenport. There's more to it. Clara was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer, more honest than anything she'd said all day. Because I wanted to disappear. I wanted to make myself so repulsive that no one would look at me. No one would want me. And for a while it worked. I was free. She turned back to the window. But freedom doesn't last. Not for women like me. Eventually someone comes along with a bigger threat, a worse option, and you have to choose the lesser evil. Is that what I am, the lesser evil? I don't know yet. She glanced at him. What am I to you? Sebastian considered lying, considered giving her the polite answer, but they'd both had enough of lies for one day. A complication I didn't plan for. Clara's lips quirked. Honest. I'll take it. The train rattled through the darkness. They sat in silence, not comfortable, but not hostile either. A strange truce between two people who'd signed a contract in blood and were only now realizing what they'd agreed to. Eventually Clara stood. I'm going to change. Get some rest. She disappeared behind the partition. Sebastian heard the rustle of fabric, the quiet sounds of her undressing. He tried not to think about it, tried not to imagine what she looked like beneath all that armor. When she emerged, she was wearing a simple nightgown, her hair down for the first time all day. She looked younger, vulnerable, human. You're staring, she said. Sorry. She climbed into one of the converted beds, pulled the blanket up to her chin. Good night, Your Grace. Sebastian. What? My name is Sebastian. You're my wife. You should probably use it. Claire considered this. Good night, Sebastian. Good night, Clara. He waited until her breathing evened out before he stood, moved to the window, watched England blur past in the darkness. Somewhere out there was Ashford Hall, his home, his prison, the place where this strange, terrible marriage would truly begin. And beside him, already asleep, already dreaming, was the woman who'd just become the most dangerous person in his life. Not because she was cruel, not because she was weak, but because for the first time in a decade, Sebastian Blackthorne had no idea what was going to happen next. And that terrified him more than anything. Ashford Hall looked like something out of a ghost story. The train had deposited them at the village station just after dawn, and the carriage ride up to the estate took another 40 minutes through countryside that grew progressively wilder and more neglected. By the time the house came into view, Clara understood exactly why Sebastian had been desperate enough to marry a stranger. The place was dying. Once, it must have been magnificent. 3 stories of gray stone with twin wings stretching out like arms. Formal gardens that probably looked stunning a century ago. A long gravel drive lined with oak trees so old their branches formed a tunnel overhead. But time and poverty had stripped away the grandeur, leaving behind something hollow. Windows boarded up, ivy crawling over the east wing like a disease, sections of the roof visibly sagging. Sebastian sat across from her in the carriage, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the house like he was bracing for impact. "Home sweet home," he muttered. Clara said nothing. What was there to say? She'd known the estate was struggling. That was the whole point of this arrangement. But knowing and seeing were different things. The carriage stopped at the front entrance. A handful of servants waited on the steps, maybe 7 or 8 total. For a house this size, that was nothing. Most estates employed dozens. An older woman stepped forward as Sebastian helped Clara down. She was thin, severe-looking, with gray hair pulled back so tight it must have hurt. Her black dress was impeccable, but decades out of fashion. "Your Grace." "Welcome home." Her eyes slid to Clara. "And this must be the new Duchess." "Mrs. Brennan. This is my wife, Clara." Sebastian's tone was formal, distant. "Clara, Mrs. Brennan has been running Ashford since my mother passed." "Trying to run it," Mrs. Brennan corrected. "Though there's only so much one can do with half a staff and no budget." She looked Clara up and down with the kind of assessment that made Clara want to stand straighter. "We've prepared the Duchess's rooms in the West Wing." "The West Wing?" Sebastian frowned. "That's where the Duchess traditionally resides," Mrs. Brennan said firmly. "The Duke's chambers are in the East Wing, as you know." Clara caught the subtext immediately. Separate wings, separate lives. The servants had already decided what kind of marriage this would be. "That's fine," she said before Sebastian could argue. "I'm sure the West Wing will be perfectly adequate." Mrs. Brennan's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or approval. "I'll have your trunks sent up immediately, Your Grace. Breakfast will be ready in the dining room whenever you're settled." She turned and swept back into the house, the other servants scattering to their duties. Clara and Sebastian were left standing in the drive, the morning sun doing nothing to warm the cold stone facade looming over them. "She's protective of this place," Sebastian said quietly. "She's been here since she was 16, longer than I have. She doesn't trust me. She doesn't trust anyone who might threaten what's left of Ashford." He glanced at her. "Can't say I blame her." Clara followed him inside. The entrance hall was cavernous and freezing. High ceilings, marble floors, a grand staircase that split in 2 directions halfway up. Portraits lined the walls, generations of blackthorns staring down with varying degrees of disapproval. The air smelled like dust and old money and decay. "The house has 140 rooms," Sebastian said, his voice echoing. "We use maybe 20. The rest are closed off to save on heating and maintenance." He started up the stairs. "I'll show you to your wing." They climbed in silence. Clara's traveling dress felt too thin in the draft that seemed to blow through every corridor. She noticed the wallpaper peeling in places, water stains on the ceiling, a missing balustrade on the landing. Sebastian led her down a long hallway, stopping at a set of double doors. "Your rooms." He pushed them open. Clara stepped inside and immediately understood why Mrs. Brennan had put her here. The West Wing hadn't been updated in half a century. The furniture was good quality, but ancient. The bed was enormous, with heavy curtains that probably hadn't been cleaned in years. The windows overlooked the overgrown gardens, all dead roses and choked fountains. It was beautiful in a tragic sort of way, like a museum of someone else's life. "I know it's not," Sebastian started. "It's fine." Clara set down her bag. "I've stayed in worse." "Have you?" She turned to him. "You don't know anything about me, Sebastian. That was the point, remember? A transaction. No questions." His expression hardened. "Right, of course." He moved toward the door. "Breakfast is at 8. Mrs. Brennan will show you around after. If you need anything, I'll manage." He paused in the doorway, looking like he wanted to say something else. But whatever it was, he swallowed it down. "Welcome to Ashford Hall, Clara." Then he was gone. Clara stood alone in the cold, dusty room and felt the weight of her decision settle over her like those bed curtains. Heavy, suffocating, inescapable. She'd escaped one prison by walking into another, but breakfast was a disaster. Clara arrived at the dining room exactly at 8 to find Sebastian already seated at the head of a table that could have accommodated 30 people. He was reading through a stack of papers, a cup of black coffee cooling at his elbow. He didn't look up when she entered. Mrs. Brennan appeared with a plate of toast and eggs that looked like they'd been rationed for war. "Will there be anything else, Your Grace?" "No, thank you." The housekeeper disappeared. Clara sat down at the opposite end of the table, an absurd distance away from Sebastian. The silence stretched out like the polished wood between them. "Sleep well?" Sebastian asked without looking up. "Adequately." "The rooms are comfortable?" "As comfortable as can be expected." He finally glanced at her. "You don't have to be polite, Clara. If something's wrong, everything's fine." "You're angry." "I'm not angry." She buttered her toast with precise, controlled movements. "I'm adjusting." "To what? The house? The arrangement? Me?" "All of it." Sebastian set down his papers. "Look, I know this isn't ideal." "Ideal?" Clara laughed, a sharp sound. "We're living in separate wings of a crumbling estate, pretending to be married for the benefit of servants who clearly think I'm here to steal the silver. I'd say we're well past ideal." "Then what do you want me to do? Install you in my bedroom? Play the devoted husband? We both agreed this would be a transaction. Yes, you've made that abundantly clear." She met his eyes. "But transactions require both parties to fulfill their obligations. I'm here. I'm married to you. Your debts are paid. What exactly are you doing to hold up your end?" "I'm giving you protection. That's what you wanted." "Am I protected?" "Because from where I'm sitting, I'm alone in a house full of strangers, in the middle of nowhere, with a husband who can't even be bothered to share a breakfast table with me like a normal human being." Sebastian's jaw clenched. "You want normalcy? From this?" He gestured at the decaying grandeur around them. "There's nothing normal about any of this, Clara. We're both making the best of a shit situation. Then maybe we should start by pretending we can at least tolerate each other's company." "I can tolerate you fine." "Really?" "Because you've spent the last 12 hours avoiding me." "I gave you space. I thought that's what you wanted." "What I want," Clara said slowly, "is to not feel like a stranger in my own home." The words hung in the air. Sebastian stared at her, something shifting in his expression. "This isn't your home," he said finally. "It's mine. You're just visiting." Clara stood up. "Then I'll make sure to pack my bags early." She left the dining room before he could respond, her breakfast untouched. Mrs. Brennan found her an hour later in the library. Claire had been wandering the used sections of the house, trying to map out the space, when she discovered a room that actually looked lived in. Books lined every wall, floor to ceiling. A fire burned in the grate, the first real warmth she'd felt since arriving. Leather chairs worn smooth from use. A desk covered in more of Sebastian's papers. She was standing by the fire when Mrs. Brennan appeared in the doorway. "Forgive the intrusion, Your Grace. I wanted to show you the household accounts." Clara turned. "The accounts?" "It's customary for the lady of the house to manage them." Mrs. Brennan held out a leather-bound ledger. "Though if you'd prefer not to be bothered—" "No, I'll look at them." Clara took the book. It was heavier than expected. Mrs. Brennan watched her with that same assessing look. The previous Duchess, the Duke's mother, she kept meticulous records, everything balanced to the penny. After she passed, His Grace tried to maintain them, but she trailed off delicately. But he had other priorities. The estate has been struggling for some time, long before you arrived. Clara opened the ledger. The numbers inside made her stomach drop. Debts listed in red ink page after page. The credits column was almost empty. Servants' wages months behind. Suppliers unpaid. Mortgages overdue. "How bad is it?" she asked quietly. "Bad enough that your dowry, generous as it was, will barely keep us afloat another year." Mrs. Brennan's voice softened slightly. "I'm telling you this not to frighten you, Your Grace, but because you should know what you've walked into." Does Sebastian know how dire it is? He knows. He's been trying to save this place since his father died 6 years ago, sold everything that wasn't entailed, dismissed half the staff, closed off sections of the house. Mrs. Brennan paused. He's a proud man, too proud to admit when he's drowning. Clara looked at the numbers again, felt the weight of them. What happens if we can't pay? The bank forecloses. Lord Pemberton buys the estate at auction. The Blackthorn line ends. Mrs. Brennan met her eyes. Everything His Grace is fighting for disappears. And you, the staff? We find new positions, if we're lucky. She straightened. But it won't come to that. It can't. Clara heard the unspoken plea. These people had given their lives to Ashford. They were counting on her, this stranger who'd lied her way into their world, to somehow fix what generations of Blackthorns couldn't. I'll need to see everything, Clara said. Every account, every contract, every debt. Mrs. Brennan's expression shifted to something almost like respect. I'll have them brought to your room. Not my room. Here. Clara gestured to the desk. If I'm going to save this place, I'll need space to work. His Grace uses this library as his office. Then he can share. Clara set the ledger down firmly. We're married, Mrs. Brennan. For better or worse. Might as well start acting like it. Sebastian found her there 6 hours later, surrounded by papers, her hair coming loose from its pins, ink on her fingers. What are you doing? Clara didn't look up. Working. On what? Your accounts. They're a mess, by the way. I found 3 separate entries for the same debt, 2 suppliers you're paying twice, and a contract with a grain merchant who's been dead for 4 years. Sebastian crossed the room. You had no right. I had every right. Mrs. Brennan gave me the household ledgers. It's my responsibility now. Those are private. Those are our survival. Clara finally looked at him. Did you know you're 3 months behind on the groundskeeper's salary? Or that the butcher stopped delivering because you haven't paid him since February? Or that there's a leak in the north wing that's going to cause structural damage if it's not fixed before winter? I know all of that. Then why haven't you done anything about it? Because I don't have the money. The words came out harsh, frustrated. I don't have enough to pay everyone. I have to choose. And every choice means someone suffers. Clara stood. Then stop choosing alone. What? You married me for money. Fine. But I'm not just a bank account, Sebastian. I can help. You don't know anything about running an estate. No, but I know about managing finances. My father built his shipping empire from nothing. I watched him negotiate contracts, juggle debts, find solutions when everyone said there weren't any. She moved closer. You're bleeding money because you're trying to maintain appearances. The formal gardens, the extra staff, the horses. Those aren't luxuries. They're necessities. For who? The neighbors you're trying to impress? They already know you're broke. Everyone does. That's why they came to the wedding, to watch you sell yourself. Sebastian's hands curled into fists. Careful. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm trying to help you see clearly. Clara picked up a sheet of paper. You have 4 horses in the stable. You ride one. Sell the others. That's immediate cash and reduced feed costs. You have 2 grooms for 1 horse. Dismiss 1. The formal gardens? Let them go wild. Hire a groundskeeper who can manage basic maintenance and focus on the profitable land. The tenant farms, the timber. You want me to destroy everything my family built? I want you to save what matters. She met his eyes. This house, the land, the legacy. The rest is just pride. Pride is all I have left. No, you have me. The words came out softer than she intended. Whether you like it or not. Sebastian stared at her. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Vulnerability, maybe. Or recognition. Then it was gone. Fine. Do whatever you think is best. Burn it all down if that's what it takes. He turned toward the door. I'm going into the village. I'll be back late. Sebastian, but he was already gone. Clara stood alone in the library, surrounded by the wreckage of a dying legacy, and felt the first real stirrings of anger. Not at Sebastian, at the situation, at the unfairness of it, at the fact that she'd escaped one trap only to land in another where she was expected to save a man who didn't even want to look at her. She sat back down, picked up her pen, and got back to work. Bruh. Over the next 2 weeks, Clara tore Ashford Hall apart. She started with the staff, called everyone together in the servants' hall, and laid out the reality. There was no money. Choices had to be made. She gave them 3 options: reduced wages and guaranteed positions, full wages with no guarantee past 6 months, or generous severance and references. Half chose to stay. The other half, mostly the younger ones with prospects elsewhere, took the severance. Mrs. Brennan watched the whole thing with an expression Clara couldn't read. "You're more ruthless than I expected," the housekeeper said afterward. "I'm practical. There's a difference. The Duke won't like it." "The Duke doesn't have to like it. He just has to survive it." Next came the horses. Clara contacted a buyer in London, negotiated a fair price, and had 3 of the 4 animals sold within a week. The grooms she dismissed personally, with a month's wages and letters of recommendation she wrote herself. Sebastian said nothing. He'd taken to avoiding her entirely, leaving early for the tenant farms and returning after she'd gone to bed. They were living parallel lives in the same house, crossing paths only at dinner, and even then, barely speaking. Clara told herself she didn't care. This was a transaction, after all. But late at night, alone in the West Wing, she found herself thinking about the train ride. The way he'd looked at her when she admitted she'd wanted to disappear. The brief flicker of understanding in his eyes. She pushed those thoughts away, focused on the numbers, the contracts, the endless stream of problems that needed solutions. The breakthrough came when she was reviewing the land surveys. Ashford owned nearly 2,000 acres, most of it tenant-farmed or forested, but there was a section along the eastern boundary, maybe 300 acres, that wasn't being used for anything. The survey called it marshland, unsuitable for agriculture. Clara took the survey to Mrs. Brennan. "This eastern section, why isn't it farmed? Too wet. Floods every spring. The old Duke tried to drain it 30 years ago, but it didn't take. What's beyond it?" "The river. And past that, the railroad line to London." Something clicked in Clara's mind. "The railroad bought land for the expansion last year, didn't they?" "Aye. From Lord Pemberton. Paid handsomely for it, too." Clara looked at the survey again. The railroad line ran parallel to Ashford's eastern border. If they were expanding, they'd need access. And that marshland, useless for farming, might be perfect for railroad infrastructure. "I need to write a letter," she said. 3 days later, a representative from the railroad company arrived. Clara met him in the library, dressed in her most severe gown, hair pulled back, every inch the Duchess. Sebastian had been informed of the meeting but hadn't bothered to attend. Fine. She'd handle it herself. The representative was a Mr. Grimsby, middle-aged and professional, with the kind of face that gave nothing away. "Your Grace, thank you for inviting me." "Thank you for coming, Mr. Grimsby. Can I offer you tea?" "No, thank you. I'm afraid my time is limited." He set a briefcase on the desk. "Your letter mentioned land for sale along the eastern boundary?" "Potentially. I wanted to gauge your interest first." "We're always interested in land near our routes. May I ask what prompted this inquiry?" Clara handed him the survey. 300 acres adjacent to your new expansion, currently marshland, but I imagine that's an advantage for your purposes. Minimal disruption, easy access to the river for materials transport. Grimsby studied the map. His expression didn't change, but Clara saw his fingers tighten on the paper. "This is excellent positioning," he admitted, "but marshland comes with challenges, drainage, foundation issues, all solvable with the right investment, which you'll make back in efficiency." Clara leaned forward. "I'm not asking for charity, Mr. Grimsby. I'm offering you something you need. The question is whether you're willing to pay what it's worth." "And what do you think it's worth?" Clara named a figure, high, but not unreasonable. Grimsby's eyebrows rose. "That's ambitious." "It's fair market value for strategically positioned land. Lord Pemberton charged you twice that for inferior access. Lord Pemberton's land was already drained. And you spent 6 months fighting with his tenants over access rights. My land comes with no complications, no existing leases, full ownership transfer upon payment." She held his gaze. "Plus, I'll throw in rights of way through our northern border for future expansion. No additional cost. That got his attention. I'd need to survey the land myself, get approval from the board. Of course, survey it today if you like, but I'll need an answer by next week. I have another interested party. A lie, but he didn't need to know that. Grimsby stood. I'll be in touch within 3 days, Your Grace. I look forward to it. After he left, Clara sat down, her hands shaking. She'd just gambled everything on a hunch. If the railroad didn't bite, she'd wasted their last bit of leverage. If Sebastian found out before she had a confirmed offer, he'd probably strangle her. But if it worked... The library door slammed open. Sebastian stood there, his face dark with fury. What the hell did you just do? You had no right. I had every right. That land is part of the estate, and the estate is as much mine now as it is yours. So you decided to sell it without even discussing it with me? Clara stood her ground. When exactly was I supposed to discuss it? Between the times you're ignoring me at breakfast or avoiding me at dinner? That land has been in my family for 200 years. That land is a swamp that floods every spring and generates exactly 0 income. She grabbed the survey, thrust it at him. Look at it, Sebastian. Really look. It's worthless as farmland, but to the railroad it's perfect. And if they buy it, we can pay off every debt you have and still have enough to repair the roof. You don't understand. I understand that pride doesn't pay bills. I understand that in 6 months, if we don't find revenue, the bank forecloses and you lose everything anyway. Her voice rose. You married me to save this place, so let me save it. By destroying it piece by piece, by making hard choices. The same choices you've been avoiding for years because you can't stand the thought of being less than what your father was, or his father, or any of the great blackthorns staring down at you from those portraits. The words hit like a slap. Sebastian went very still. You don't know anything about my family. I know they left you with a legacy you can't afford and expectations you can't meet. I know you're drowning trying to live up to dead men's standards. Clara's voice softened. I'm not trying to hurt you, Sebastian. I'm trying to help you survive. By selling our land to the highest bidder? By being practical, something you clearly struggle with. He moved closer, and Clara saw real anger in his eyes now. Not the cold distance he'd been showing her. Something hotter. More personal. You want to know why I've been avoiding you? His voice was low, dangerous. Because every time I look at you, I'm reminded that I sold myself. That I was so desperate, so pathetic, I married a woman I didn't know for money I didn't earn. And you, walking around my house, reorganizing my life, fixing my mistakes, you make it impossible to forget. Clara's breath caught. Sebastian, you think I don't know this place is falling apart? You think I haven't spent 6 years watching everything my family built turn to dust? I know. I've always known. His hands curled into fists. But at least I was failing on my own terms. At least I had that. And now? Now I have you, fixing everything, being efficient and practical and right about every damn thing. And I hate it. I hate that you're here. I hate that I need you. And I hate that you're probably going to save this place when I couldn't. The confession hung in the air between them, raw and painful. Clara felt something crack in her chest. You think I want to be here? You think this is what I imagined for myself? Her voice shook. I married you to escape a man who terrified me, to have a name and a title that might protect me. And instead, I got a crumbling house, a mountain of debt, and a husband who can barely stand to be in the same room with me. Then why are you trying so hard to fix it? Because I don't know how to do anything else. The words tore out of her. Because if I stop moving, if I stop working, I'll have to think about what I've done, what I've given up, what I'm stuck with. They stared at each other, breathing hard. All the careful distance they'd maintained finally shattered. We're a disaster, Sebastian said quietly. Yes. This marriage is never going to work. Probably not. So what do we do? Clara laughed, a broken sound. I have no idea. Sebastian ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking exhausted. If the railroad buys the land, if your plan actually works, what then? Then we pay the debts, fix the house, start rebuilding. Together? The question was quiet, uncertain. Clara met his eyes. I don't know how to do it any other way. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Sebastian nodded slowly. All right, we try it your way. But Clara, he stepped closer. No more secrets, no more decisions behind my back. If we're doing this, we do it as partners. Partners? Clara repeated. Not a transaction? Not just a transaction. Something shifted in his expression. Maybe something more complicated. I can do complicated. Can you? He was close enough now that she could see the gold flecks in his eyes. Because I'm starting to think complicated might be our only option. Clara's pulse jumped. What are you? A knock at the door interrupted them. Mrs. Brennan entered, looking flustered. Your Grace, forgive the intrusion, but there's a visitor. Lord Davenport. He's waiting in the drawing room. The blood drained from Clara's face. Sebastian noticed immediately. Tell him we're not receiving visitors. He was quite insistent, said it was a matter of urgency regarding the Duchess. Clara's hands started shaking. She clasped them together, trying to hide it, but Sebastian saw. His expression went cold. I'll handle this. No, Clara. He turned to her fully. Is this the man? The one from the wedding? She couldn't speak, could barely breathe. I'll take that as a yes. Sebastian's voice was ice. Mrs. Brennan, tell Lord Davenport the Duchess is indisposed, and he is not welcome at Ashford Hall, ever. He said he'd wait, Your Grace. Then call the groundskeeper. Have him escorted off the property, forcibly if necessary. Mrs. Brennan's eyes widened. Sir, now. She hurried out. Sebastian turned back to Clara. What does he want? I don't know. Clara's voice came out small, frightened. She hated it. Tell me what he did to you. Sebastian, tell me. It wasn't a command. It was a plea. Clara closed her eyes. He courted me 2 years ago. Was charming at first, attentive. My father approved, and then she swallowed. Then he started getting possessive, demanding. He'd show up at the house unannounced, follow me when I went out, make comments about what I wore, who I spoke to. Did he hurt you? He tried. The memory made her sick. One night at a ball, he cornered me, said we were going to be married whether I wanted it or not. Said my father had already agreed. I said no, and he... She stopped, unable to continue. Sebastian's jaw clenched. What did he do? He grabbed me, tried to kiss me. I fought him off, but barely. Clara opened her eyes. That's when I started the rumors. I made myself ugly, unmarriageable, so he'd leave me alone. And it worked. For a while. Until now. Until now. Sebastian was quiet for a moment. Then he said very calmly, He's not going to hurt you again. You can't protect me from him. I'm a duke, Clara. He's a second son with no title and no prospects. If he so much as looks at you wrong, I'll destroy him. Sebastian's eyes were hard. That's not a threat. It's a promise. Before Clara could respond, raised voices erupted from the front hall. A crash. Mrs. Brennan's sharp command, and then Davenport's voice, loud and angry. I have business with the Duchess. You can't keep me out. Sebastian was out the door before Clara could stop him. She followed, her heart hammering. The entrance hall had become a battlefield. Davenport stood near the door, held back by 2 groundskeepers. His face was red with fury. Mrs. Brennan stood to the side, rigid with disapproval. Let me go, Davenport snarled. I need to speak with Clara. The Duchess of Ashford, Sebastian corrected, his voice deadly quiet. And you'll address her as your Grace, or you won't address her at all. Davenport's eyes found Clara on the stairs. His expression shifted to something hungry, possessive. Clara, finally, I need to speak with you, privately. No, Sebastian said. This doesn't concern you, Blackthorn. Everything concerning my wife concerns me. Sebastian moved between Davenport and the stairs. You have 5 seconds to leave before I have you thrown out. You can't. 1. This is absurd. 2. Clara, tell him. 3. Davenport's mask slipped. Clara saw the real man underneath, the one who'd cornered her at that ball, who'd thought he could take what he wanted without consequence. You think marrying a washed-up duke protects you? Davenport's voice turned vicious. He can't even protect his own estate. What makes you think he can protect you? 4. I know things about you, Clara. Things your new husband might find interesting. Things that could... Sebastian's fist connected with Davenport's jaw before he finished the sentence. The crack echoed through the hall. Davenport went down hard, blood streaming from his nose. The groundskeepers jumped back. 5, Sebastian said calmly, shaking out his hand. Get him out of my house. The groundskeepers grabbed Davenport under the arms, hauled him to his feet. He was still sputtering, blood on his white shirt, his eyes wild. You'll regret this, both of you. You'll do nothing, Sebastian cut him off. Because if you ever come near my wife again, if you even speak her name, I will ruin you. I'll make sure every door in England closes in your face. I'll spread rumors that make Clara's look tame, and I'll enjoy every second of it. He nodded to the groundskeepers. They dragged Davenport out. His protests faded as they hauled him down the drive. The door slammed shut. Silence fell. Sebastian stood in the center of the hall, breathing hard, his knuckles bleeding. Slowly, he turned to look at Clara. Are you all right? Clara couldn't speak, couldn't move. She just stared at him, this man she'd married out of desperation, who'd just defended her with a violence that should have terrified her, but instead made her feel something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. Clara? She walked down the stairs, crossed the hall, and without thinking, without planning, she took his injured hand in hers. Thank you, she whispered. Sebastian looked at their joined hands, at her face, at the tears she didn't realize were falling. He's never going to hurt you again, he said quietly. I swear it. And for the first time since this nightmare marriage began, Clara believed him. Mrs. Brennan brought bandages and antiseptic without being asked. She set them on the hall table, gave Clara a long look that might have been approval or warning, and disappeared back into the servants' quarters without a word. Clara led Sebastian to the library, still holding his injured hand like she was afraid he'd vanish if she let go. Her fingers were trembling. She could feel the adrenaline crash coming, could feel the edges of panic creeping in, but she forced it down. Not yet. Not in front of him. Sebastian sat in one of the leather chairs without protest. Clara knelt beside him, carefully unwrapping the makeshift bandage Mrs. Brennan had provided. His knuckles were split open, already swelling. Blood smeared across his palm. This is going to sting, she said quietly. I've had worse. She dabbed at the cuts with antiseptic. He didn't flinch, didn't make a sound, just watched her with an intensity that made her hands shake harder. You didn't have to do that, Clara said. Yes, I did. He could press charges, assault. You hit a pier... Let him try. Sebastian's voice was flat. His word against mine. And I'm a duke. He's nothing. Clara wrapped the bandage carefully, trying to keep her touch gentle despite the tremor in her fingers. That's not how the world works. It's how my world works. He caught her hand, stilling it. Clara, look at me. She did. His eyes were dark, still angry, but something else too. Something she couldn't quite name. I meant what I said. He's never going to hurt you again. Whatever he knows, whatever he thinks he can use against you, I don't care. He comes near you, I'll destroy him. You can't fight all my battles. Watch me. The words should have sounded arrogant, but they didn't. They sounded like a promise, like something solid she could hold on to. Clara finished the bandage, sat back on her heels. Why? Why what? Why defend me? We barely know each other. This marriage is a transaction, remember? You said so yourself. Sebastian was quiet for a long moment. It was. When we started. He flexed his hand, testing the bandage. I'm not sure what it is anymore. Before Clara could respond, a sharp knock interrupted them. Mrs. Brennan appeared in the doorway, her face tight. Your Grace, a letter just arrived, from London. She held out an envelope with a wax seal. It's marked urgent. Sebastian took it, frowning, broke the seal, read in silence. Clara watched the color drain from his face. What is it? He handed her the letter without a word. The handwriting was elegant, the message brutal. Lord Pemberton requests the pleasure of your company at Pemberton House for dinner tomorrow evening. The matter concerns outstanding debts and the future of Ashford Hall. Your attendance is expected, both Duke and Duchess." "He's calling in the loans," Clara said quietly. 3 months early." Sebastian's voice was hollow. "He's not supposed to have the right to do that. Unless there's a clause for early collection in cases of—" Clara scanned the letter again. "In cases of material change in circumstances, like a marriage. He's using your dowry as an excuse, says the influx of capital changes the terms of the agreement." Clara's mind raced. "That's not legal, is it?" "It is if he wrote the contracts himself, which he did." Sebastian stood, pacing to the window. "He's been waiting for this. Probably had it planned from the moment he heard about our engagement. Can we fight it? With what? Lawyers cost money we don't have. And even if we could afford them, Pemberton owns half the judges in London." He braced his hands against the window frame. "We're finished." "No." Clara stood. "The railroad won't close the deal in time. Even if they agree to buy the marshland, contracts take weeks. We have until tomorrow night." "Then we don't go." Sebastian laughed, bitter. "And give him exactly what he wants? An excuse to claim we're in default? He'll foreclose before the week is out." Clara's mind spun through possibilities, calculations, desperate solutions. There had to be a way. There was always a way. "How much does he want?" "Everything we owe him, plus interest. Call it £30,000. The number hit like a physical blow. Clara's dowry had been $40,000. After paying off the most urgent debts, settling the dismissed servants, and covering basic operating costs for the next 6 months, they had maybe $12,000 left. Nowhere near enough. "We could sell more land," she said. "The timber rights, or—" "There's no time. And Pemberton knows it." Sebastian turned to face her. "This is what he's been waiting for. A chance to take Ashford and humiliate me in the process. Make an example out of the Duke who sold himself to save a dying estate. So we what? Just give up?" "I don't see another option." Clara felt something crack inside her. She'd spent weeks trying to save this place. Cutting costs, negotiating deals, fighting tooth and nail to keep Ashford afloat. And for what? So Pemberton could swoop in and take it anyway? "No," she said again, harder this time. "We go to that dinner. We face him. And we find a way." "Clara, I didn't escape Davenport just to lose to Pemberton. I didn't marry you, didn't give up everything I had to watch some predator take what's ours." Her voice shook with anger. "We fight. That's what we do." Sebastian stared at her. For the first time since she'd met him, she saw something other than cold control in his expression. Something raw and desperate and almost hopeful. "You said ours." Clara blinked. "What?" "You said what's ours?" "Not mine. Ours." She hadn't realized, but now that he'd pointed it out, she couldn't take it back, and she didn't want to. "It is ours," she said quietly, "for better or worse. Isn't that what we agreed to?" Sebastian crossed the room in 3 strides, stopped inches from her, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his eyes, the tension in his jaw. "You're the most aggravating woman I've ever met." "Is that supposed to be a compliment?" "It's the truth." His voice dropped. "You walk into my life, tear it apart, rebuild it better than I ever could. And now you're ready to march into a trap with me like it's a perfectly reasonable thing to do." "It is reasonable. We don't have a choice." "There's always a choice, Clara. We could run, take what's left of the money, and disappear. Start over somewhere Pemberton can't reach us." The suggestion hung in the air between them. For a moment, Clara let herself imagine it. A small house somewhere quiet. No debts, no expectations, no Davenport or Pemberton or dying legacies to save. But then she thought of Mrs. Brennan, of the servants who'd stayed, of this crumbling house that somehow felt more like home than anywhere she'd lived in years. "I'm not running," she said. "Not anymore." Sebastian's expression shifted. "Neither am I." He lifted his bandaged hand, hesitated, then touched her face, gentle, careful, like she was something precious that might break. "We'll go to Pemberton's dinner," he said quietly. "We'll face him together, and if we go down, at least we'll go down fighting." Clara leaned into his touch before she could stop herself. "That's a terrible plan. It's the only one we have." Then I guess we're committed to being terrible at this. Sebastian's thumb brushed her cheekbone. I'm starting to think terrible might be our specialty. The moment stretched. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd never been this close to him, never let herself want to be, but standing here, his hand on her face, his eyes searching hers, she felt something shift, something dangerous and reckless, and entirely too real. Sebastian? A crash from upstairs shattered the moment. They pulled apart. Footsteps pounded down the hall. A maid appeared, white-faced and breathless. Your Grace, the West Wing, there's smoke. Yen. The fire had started in Clara's room. By the time they reached the West Wing, smoke was pouring under the door. Sebastian grabbed the maid, shoved her back. Get everyone out, now, and send someone for the village fire brigade. The girl ran. Sebastian tested the door handle, hot but not unbearable. He kicked it open. Flames consumed the bed curtains, spreading to the wallpaper. The old dry fabric went up like kindling. Smoke filled the room, thick and choking. Clara started forward. Sebastian caught her around the waist. Don't. My things aren't worth your life. He pulled her back, already calling for water. We need to contain it before it spreads to the rest of the wing. Servants appeared with buckets. They formed a line, passing water from the bathroom. Sebastian tore off his jacket, soaked it, and used it to beat at the flames. Clara grabbed another bucket, threw water on the burning wallpaper. It took 20 minutes to get the fire under control. By the time the village brigade arrived, the worst was over. Clara's room was destroyed, bed, furniture, half the wall, but the fire hadn't spread. Sebastian stood in the ruined doorway, covered in soot and ash, breathing hard. Clara leaned against the wall beside him, her dress black with smoke, her hands blistered from the buckets. What happened? Mrs. Brennan demanded, appearing from nowhere. How did this start? I don't know. Clara's voice was hoarse. I wasn't even in here. I was in the library. The fireplace, one of the maids said. She pointed to the hearth. Look. They crowded in. The fireplace was cold, hadn't been lit all day. But there were burn marks on the floor leading from it, and on the mantel, half melted, was a candle that shouldn't have been there. Sebastian picked it up carefully. This isn't ours. No, Your Grace. Mrs. Brennan's face was grim. And it was placed deliberately. See how it's positioned? Tilted to drip wax onto the bed curtains. Clara's stomach dropped. Someone set this on purpose. Who would? Sebastian stopped. His expression went dark. Davenport? You don't know that? Who else? He shows up making threats, I throw him out, and hours later your room is on fire? Sebastian's hands curled into fists. This is revenge. Mrs. Brennan cleared her throat. Your Grace, there's something else. She gestured to the ruined bed. The maids were preparing your things for the trip to London. Your trunks were packed. All your clothes, your jewelry, are ash now. Clara finished quietly. Everything she'd brought from her father's house was gone. The dresses, the few pieces of her mother's jewelry she'd kept, the small, stupid things she'd held on to because they were hers. All of it, gone. Sebastian's face went white with rage. I'm going to kill him. No. Clara grabbed his arm. That's what he wants, for you to do something rash. Get arrested. Give Pemberton more ammunition. I don't care. I care. Her voice cracked. I care if you throw your life away for me. I care if you give them exactly what they want. Then what do you suggest? We just let him get away with this? We make him irrelevant. Clara forced herself to think past the anger, past the violation of knowing someone had been in her room, had touched her things, had tried to burn her alive. We go to London, we deal with Pemberton, and we make ourselves so powerful that Davenport becomes nothing more than a bad memory. Sebastian stared at her. You want to use this as motivation? I want to survive. And then I want to win. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. All right, we survive. We win. He looked at the ruined room. But first, you need somewhere to sleep. Clara ended up in Sebastian's wing. Mrs. Brennan had wanted to put her in a guest room, but Sebastian overruled her. She stays near me, where I can keep an eye on her. The housekeeper's eyebrows rose, but she didn't argue. Just showed Clara to a room 2 doors down from Sebastian's chambers, helped her wash the soot from her skin, and found her a nightgown from somewhere in storage. The door has a lock, Mrs. Brennan said quietly. Use it. Clara wasn't sure if that was advice about fire safety or something else. Either way, she was grateful. She locked the door, sat on the bed, and finally let herself shake. Someone had tried to kill her, or at least scare her badly enough that she'd leave. And they'd almost succeeded. If the maid hadn't noticed the smoke, if they'd been 10 minutes slower. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Clara? It's me. Sebastian. She unlocked the door. He stood in the hallway in shirt sleeves, his hair still damp from washing. He'd cleaned up, but there were still soot stains on his collar. In his hands was a glass of amber liquid. Whiskey, he said. Thought you might need it. Clara took the glass, drank. The burn helped center her. Can I come in? She stepped back. He entered, closing the door but not locking it. Propriety, even now. Are you all right? He asked. No, but I will be. Clara, Don't. She set down the glass. Don't apologize. Don't tell me it's your fault. I'm tired of people acting like I'm something fragile that needs protecting. You almost died. But I didn't. She met his eyes. We didn't. And tomorrow, we're going to walk into Pemberton's house and we're going to fight for what's ours. Sebastian crossed to her, slow, deliberate, giving her time to move away. She didn't. You're terrifying, you know that? Good. I'm tired of being afraid. He touched her face again, the same gesture from earlier, but this time his hand lingered. His thumb traced her jaw, and Clara felt her breath catch. I keep trying to figure you out, he said quietly. Keep trying to understand how you're real. I'm not that complicated. Yes, you are. You're brilliant and ruthless and brave and so damn stubborn. He stopped, swallowed hard. And I have no idea what to do with you. Clara's heart hammered. What do you want to do with me? The question hung between them. Dangerous. Loaded. The kind of question that changed everything. Sebastian leaned in, slowly. His forehead touched hers. Something stupid. How stupid? Very. Clara closed her eyes. They were standing on the edge of something neither of them had planned for. Something that could destroy the careful distance they'd maintained. Sebastian, tell me to leave. His voice was rough. Tell me this is a mistake and I'll go. But Clara didn't want him to go. Didn't want to be alone in this strange room in a dying house where someone had just tried to kill her. Didn't want to keep pretending this was just a transaction when it hadn't been that for weeks. Stay, she whispered. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. Wasn't the polite kiss they'd shared at the wedding. It was desperate and raw and full of all the anger and fear and want they'd been swallowing down since the day they met. Clara kissed him back, fisted her hands in his shirt, let herself feel everything she'd been denying, the attraction, the connection, the terrifying certainty that this man had become something more than just a convenient escape. Sebastian pulled back, breathing hard. This is a mistake. Probably. We're already a disaster. We're definitely a disaster. I'm going to make this worse. Then make it worse. Clara grabbed his face, made him look at her. I'm tired of being careful, tired of protecting myself. If we're going down tomorrow, I want this. I want one real thing before it all falls apart. Sebastian's expression cracked. Whatever control he'd been clinging to shattered. He kissed her again, harder this time, and Clara let herself fall into it. Let herself stop thinking and just feel. They barely made it to the bed. Clara woke to pale morning light and the sound of Sebastian's breathing beside her. For a moment, she just lay there, trying to process what they'd done. The smart thing would be to regret it, to rebuild the walls, to pretend it was just stress and fear and adrenaline. But looking at him now, face relaxed in sleep, the hard edges softened. She couldn't make herself regret anything. You're staring. His eyes opened, gold and warm and entirely too knowing. How long have you been awake? She asked. Long enough. He turned to face her. How are you feeling? Confused, terrified, possibly insane. That makes two of us. His hand found hers under the blanket. Do you regret it? Clara considered lying. It would be easier, safer. But they'd promised each other honesty. No. Do you? No. He squeezed her hand. But I should. Why? Because this complicates everything. Because I'm supposed to be protecting you, not... He stopped. We have to go to London today. Face Pemberton. And I just made this so much harder. How? Sebastian sat up, running a hand through his hair. Because now I have something to lose that's worse than the estate, and Pemberton's going to see it the second we walk in that room. Clara sat up too, pulling the sheet around herself. What are you talking about? He's smart, Clara. He's going to see that we're not just business partners anymore, and he's going to use it against us. So what do you want to do? Pretend this didn't happen? I don't know. Sebastian looked at her. What do you want? Clara thought about it. About the fear and the fire and the kiss. About everything they'd been through in just 3 weeks. About tomorrow, when they might lose everything. I want to fight, she said finally. I want to walk into Pemberton's house and I want to win. And I want to do it with you. Not as a transaction, not as strangers playing at marriage. As partners. Partners who sleep together. Partners who trust each other. She met his eyes. Can you do that? Can you trust me? Sebastian was quiet for a long moment. Then, yes. Can you trust me? I'm getting there. He laughed, a real laugh, surprised and genuine. Fair enough. A knock at the door interrupted them. Mrs. Brennan's voice, carefully neutral. Your Grace? The carriage for London leaves in 2 hours. I've prepared breakfast. Thank you, Mrs. Brennan, Sebastian called back. They listened to her footsteps fade, then looked at each other. She knows, Clara said. Everyone probably knows by now. Servants see everything. Are you worried? About gossip? No. Sebastian stood, started gathering his scattered clothes. About tonight? Absolutely. Clara watched him dress, memorizing the moment. Because he was right. In a few hours, everything could change. They could lose Ashford, lose whatever fragile thing they were building, lose each other. Sebastian? He turned. Whatever happens tonight, thank you for fighting with me. His expression softened. Thank you for giving me something worth fighting for. Basim. The train to London left exactly on time. Clara wore a borrowed dress from Mrs. Brennan's collection, severe black silk that made her look like a widow. Everything else had burned. Sebastian had offered to buy her something new in London, but there wasn't time. They barely spoke during the journey, just sat across from each other, watching the countryside blur past, both lost in their own thoughts. Clara's mind kept circling back to the fire, to Davenport's face when Sebastian hit him, to the letter from Pemberton and the impossible amount of money they owed. We need a plan, she said finally. Sebastian looked up from the papers he'd been reviewing. I have one. Which is? Stall. Negotiate. Hope the railroad deal closes before Pemberton forces our hand. That's not a plan. That's a prayer. Do you have a better idea? Clara did, actually. It had been forming in her mind since she'd read Pemberton's letter. Dangerous. Possibly insane. But it was all they had. What if we give him what he wants? Sebastian's eyebrows rose. You want to surrender Ashford? No, I want to make him think we're going to. Clara leaned forward. Pemberton wants to humiliate you, right? To prove that old money can't survive without him. So we let him think he's won. We show up tonight desperate, defeated, begging for mercy. And then? And then we offer him a deal. Postpone the debt collection until the railroad deal closes. In exchange, we give him... She hesitated. This was the dangerous part. We give him a stake in Ashford's future profits. Sebastian stared at her. You want to make him a partner? A limited partner. 5% of estate revenues for the next 10 years. It's enough to make him feel powerful without actually giving him control. He'll never go for it. He might, if we position it right. If we make him think he's extracting his pound of flesh while still getting paid. Clara's mind raced through the angles. He doesn't actually want Ashford. He wants to own you. But owning 5% of your success? That might be sweeter revenge than foreclosure. Sebastian was quiet, turning it over. It's risky. Everything we do is risky. If the railroad deal falls through, then we're no worse off than we are now. He studied her face. You've been thinking about this. Since we got the letter. And you didn't tell me? I'm telling you now. Sebastian shook his head, something like admiration in his expression. You really are terrifying. Is that a yes? It's a maybe. Let me think about it. But Clara could see the wheels turning in his mind, could see him running the same calculations she had. It was a long shot, but long shots were all they had left. The train pulled into the station just as the sun was setting. London spread out before them, massive, indifferent, full of people who'd love to see them fail. Sebastian helped Clara down from the train, kept her hand in his as they walked through the crowded platform. Whatever happens tonight, he said quietly, we face it together. Agreed? Agreed. They hired a carriage to Pemberton House. Clara watched the city roll past, her stomach tight with nerves. This was it. The moment everything either came together or fell apart. Pemberton House was a monument to new money trying to look old. All marble and gold leaf and excessive everything. A butler answered the door, looked down his nose at them, and showed them to a drawing room where Lord Pemberton waited. He was exactly what Clara expected. Mid-50s, sharp eyes, expensive suit, the kind of man who'd built his fortune by knowing exactly when to strike. Duke Sebastian, how kind of you to come. His smile was all teeth. And the new Duchess, finally. I was beginning to think you were hiding her. Lord Pemberton, Sebastian said coldly, you said this was urgent. It is. Please sit. I've had dinner prepared. They sat. A servant brought wine. Pemberton watched them like a cat watching mice. I'll be direct, he said. Your debts are due. £30,000. I expect payment by the end of the week. You know we don't have that, Sebastian said. Then you shouldn't have borrowed it. Pemberton sipped his wine. Of course, I'm not unreasonable. I'm prepared to offer you an alternative. Here it comes, Clara thought. What alternative? Sebastian asked. Ashford Hall. Sign it over to me. In exchange, I'll forgive the debt entirely. You can even stay on as a tenant if you like. Very generous, I think. You want me to give you my family's estate for free? I want you to be realistic about your situation, Your Grace. You're broke. The house is falling apart. You married for money and spent it in weeks. Face facts. You've lost. Clara felt Sebastian tense beside her, saw the anger building. This was the moment. If they were going to try her plan, it had to be now. She put her hand on Sebastian's arm, squeezed gently. He glanced at her. She gave the tiniest nod. You're right, Sebastian said, the words clearly costing him. We have lost. The estate is failing. The debts are overwhelming. We can't pay what we owe. Pemberton's smile widened. Then we have an agreement. But, Clara cut in, we're not giving you Ashford. Pemberton's eyes shifted to her, cold, calculating. Excuse me? We have a counteroffer. Postpone the debt collection for 6 months. In exchange, you receive 5% of Ashford's revenues for the next 10 years. 5% of nothing is still nothing, my dear. We have a deal pending with the railroad, 300 acres of marshland for enough capital to clear our debts and fund repairs. The estate will be profitable within the year. Clara leaned forward. And you'll have a stake in that profit, a guaranteed return. No risk to you. Pemberton laughed. You expect me to believe you can turn that disaster around? I expect you to be smart enough to recognize an opportunity when you see one. His expression hardened. You have nerve, I'll give you that, but I'm not interested in percentages. I want the estate. Why? Clara asked. You have money, land, influence. What do you gain by destroying the Blackthorn line? Satisfaction. Pemberton's mask slipped. Your husband's father ruined mine. Spread lies, destroyed his business, drove him to suicide. The Blackthorns have looked down on people like me for generations. Now I get to watch them fall. The room went silent. Sebastian's voice was ice. My father never... Your father was a monster who crushed anyone he perceived as competition, including my family. Pemberton stood. So no, Duchess, I'm not interested in your deal. I want Ashford. I want the Blackthorn name in the dirt where it belongs, and I'm going to get it. Clara felt everything crumbling. The plan had failed. Pemberton didn't want money. He wanted revenge. You have 3 days. Pemberton said. Pay what you owe or forfeit the estate. Those are your options. Sebastian stood slowly. You're making a mistake. Am I? We'll see. Now get out of my house. They left in silence. The carriage ride back to the hotel was tense and cold. Clara couldn't think of anything to say. Every solution she'd imagined had just evaporated. They reached the hotel. Sebastian paid the driver without speaking. They climbed the stairs to their room. Only when the door closed behind them did Sebastian finally break. He's going to take everything. His voice was hollow. 3 days. We can't raise 30,000 pounds in 3 days. Clara sank into a chair. I'm sorry. You thought logic would work. But this isn't about logic. It's about hate. Sebastian poured himself a drink, drained it. My father destroyed his father. Now he's destroying me. It's almost poetic. There has to be something. There isn't. He turned to her. It's over, Clara. Ashford's gone, and you... He stopped. You should leave. Before this gets worse. Clara stared at him. Leave? You married me for protection. I can't even protect myself anymore. So go. Take whatever's left of your dowry and disappear. Start over somewhere safe. And you? I'll figure something out. I always do. Clara stood, crossed the room, slapped him. The crack echoed in the silence. Sebastian touched his face, shocked. Don't you dare, Clara said, her voice shaking with fury. Don't you dare try to push me away because you're scared. I didn't marry you to run when things got hard. I married you to fight. And we're not done fighting. Clara, no, listen to me. She grabbed his face, made him look at her. 3 days. We have 3 days to find a solution, so we use them. We find the railroad. We force them to close early. We sell everything that isn't nailed down. I don't care. But we don't give up. Not now, not when we've come this far. Sebastian's expression cracked. What if it's not enough? Then it's not enough. But at least we tried. He pulled her into his arms, held her so tight she could barely breathe. Clara felt him trembling, felt the fear and desperation he'd been holding back. I can't lose this, he whispered. I can't lose Ashford. It's all I have left of them. My mother, my father, everyone. They're all in that house. If it's gone, it's not gone yet. Clara pulled back, looked him in the eyes. And you're not alone anymore. Whatever happens, we face it together. Remember? He nodded, kissed her forehead. Together. They stayed like that for a long moment. Then Sebastian straightened, something shifting in his expression. All right. 3 days. We make it count. Where do we start? The railroad. If we can get them to close early, offer them a discount, push the timeline. A knock interrupted him. They both froze. Who is it? Sebastian called. Message for the Duke of Ashford. A hotel servant's voice. Sebastian opened the door, took the envelope, tipped the boy, and sent him away. He opened it, read. His face went white. What is it? Clara demanded. He handed her the letter. It was from her father. Clara, I know what you did. I know about the rumors, about Davenport, about everything. Come home immediately, or I will inform your husband exactly what kind of woman he married. You have until tomorrow night. Father Clara's hands started shaking. What does he mean? Sebastian's voice was careful. What don't I know? Clara couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. All the secrets she'd been hiding, all the lies she'd told to escape. Her father knew, had always known, and now he was going to destroy everything. Clara, talk to me. She looked at Sebastian, this man she'd started to trust, started to love, and realized she was about to lose him too. There's something I didn't tell you, she whispered, about why I spread the rumors, about what really happened with Davenport. Sebastian's expression went very still. What happened? Clara closed her eyes. He didn't just try to kiss me, Her voice broke. He told my father we'd been intimate, that I'd seduced him, that I was ruined and he was being generous by offering to marry me anyway. And my father... She opened her eyes, tears streaming down her face. My father believed him, told me I had to marry Davenport or be disowned. So I created the rumors, made myself so repulsive that no one would want me, including Davenport. And it worked. Until you. Sebastian stared at her. You lied to me. I didn't. You let me think it was just assault, just fear. You didn't tell me your father was complicit. That you're. He stopped. That society thinks you're ruined. I'm not. It doesn't matter if you are or aren't. His voice rose. It matters what people think. And if your father tells London that you slept with Davenport before our marriage, I know. Clara's voice was barely a whisper. I know what it means. Annulment, scandal, everything we've fought for, gone. Sebastian turned away, ran his hands through his hair. I can't believe this. I'm sorry. Don't. He held up a hand. Just don't. The silence stretched. Clara watched his back, watched him processing, and felt everything they'd built start to crumble. What do you want me to do? She asked finally. Go back to him? Beg for his silence? I don't know. Sebastian's voice was hollow. I don't know anything anymore. Clara felt something inside her shatter. She'd known this would happen, known that eventually the truth would come out and he'd look at her exactly like he was looking at her now. Like she was a problem, a mistake, something to be solved or discarded. Then I'll make it easy for you, she said, her voice steady despite the tears. I'll go to my father. I'll fix this. And you can decide if I'm worth fighting for or not. She grabbed her coat, headed for the door. Clara, wait. She didn't wait, didn't look back, just walked out into the London night, alone, with nothing but a father's blackmail and a husband who might not want her back even if she survived the next 24 hours. The Whitmore house looked exactly like Clara remembered, all gleaming marble and gold fixtures, the kind of ostentatious wealth that screamed for validation. She stood outside in the darkness, rain starting to fall, and wondered if she'd made the biggest mistake of her life by coming here. But what choice did she have? Her father held all the cards. He could destroy her marriage with a single conversation, could ruin Sebastian's already fragile reputation, could take away the one thing she'd found in this disaster of an arrangement, something real. She climbed the steps, knocked. The butler answered, recognition flickering across his face. Miss Clara, forgive me, Your Grace. We weren't expecting you. Is my father home? In his study. Shall I? Clara pushed past him. She knew the way. Edmund Whitmore sat behind his enormous desk, a cigar in one hand, a ledger in the other. He looked up when she entered, unsurprised. Ah, there you are. I was wondering how long it would take. Clara closed the door. What do you want? Straight to business. I taught you well. He set down the cigar. Sit. I'll stand. Suit yourself. Edmund leaned back in his chair, studying her with those cold businessman's eyes. You've made quite a mess of things, Clara. First the rumors, then the hasty marriage. Now I hear there was a fire at Ashford. How did you? I make it my business to know things, especially concerning my daughter. He smiled without warmth. Did you really think I didn't know about Davenport, about what he claimed, about what you did to escape him? Clara's hands curled into fists. You knew. You knew he was lying, and you still tried to force me to marry him. He wasn't lying. Edmund's voice was flat. I checked, thoroughly. You were seen leaving his rooms at that house party, unchaperoned, after midnight. Because he cornered me. I was trying to get away. It doesn't matter what actually happened. It matters what people believe. And they believe you were intimate with him, which makes you damaged goods. The words hit like a slap. Clara forced herself to breathe. Is that what this is about? Your damaged investment? This is about you embarrassing me, spreading lies about yourself, marrying some washed-up duke without my permission. Edmund stood, moved around the desk. You cost me the Davenport alliance. His family has connections I needed, so now you're going to fix it. How? You're going to divorce Blackthorne, quietly. I'll arrange everything. Then you'll marry Davenport like you should have in the first place. Clara laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You're insane. I'm practical. Blackthorne's estate is worthless. Everyone in London knows it. You'll be a widow within the year when the bank forecloses and he drinks himself to death. Better to cut your losses now. No. Edmund's expression hardened. Then I'll tell everyone the truth. About you and Davenport. About the lies. Your marriage will be annulled for fraud. Blackthorn will be a laughingstock. And you, he smiled, you'll have nothing. No title, no prospects, no protection. You'd destroy your own daughter? I'd salvage what I can from your mistakes. He returned to his desk, picked up a document. I've already drafted the statement. All it needs is my signature and delivery to the right newspapers. You have until tomorrow night to decide. Clara stared at him. This man who'd raised her, who'd taught her numbers and negotiation, who told her she was smart, capable, strong, right up until the moment she'd stopped being useful to him. Why did you give me the dowry? She asked quietly. If you knew I was lying, knew about Davenport, why let me marry Sebastian at all? Because, at the time, I thought a duke, any duke, was better than nothing, gave you legitimacy, made you respectable again. Edmund's eyes were cold. But Blackthorn's proving to be more trouble than he's worth, so I'm correcting my mistake. I won't divorce him. Then you'll lose everything. Clara felt the trap closing. Every direction she turned there were walls. Her father's blackmail, Pemberton's debt, Davenport's threats, Sebastian's doubt, the whole world pressing in, trying to force her back into the box she'd fought so hard to escape. And suddenly, standing in her father's study, something inside her snapped. No, she said. No what? No to all of it. Your threats, your control, your version of what my life should be. Clara stepped closer. You want to tell London about Davenport? Fine, do it, because I'm done being afraid. Edmund's eyebrows rose. You're bluffing. Am I? Go ahead. Send your statement. Destroy my reputation. Annul my marriage. Clara's voice was steady now. And then I'll tell them my side. How Davenport assaulted me. How you knew and didn't care. How you tried to sell me to him anyway. How you're blackmailing me now to cover your own business failures. No one will believe you. They will when I produce witnesses. Servants who saw Davenport corner me. Letters where he threatened me. Documentation of your debts to the Davenport family. Clara watched his face change. Oh yes, I know about those. Did you think I didn't notice you borrowing from them? That I couldn't read the signs when you pushed so hard for that match? Edmund's jaw clenched. You have no proof. I have enough. And even if I didn't, the scandal would ruin you just as much as it ruins me. Maybe more. The great Edmund Whitmore selling his daughter to pay gambling debts. That's not the story you want told. For the first time in her life, Clara saw uncertainty in her father's eyes. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. No, I made a mistake trusting you, believing you cared about me beyond what I could give you. Clara turned toward the door. Consider this my notice. I'm cutting ties. You want to destroy me? Try, but I'll go down fighting and I'll take you with me. Clara, she stopped, hand on the doorknob. Don't contact me again. Don't write. Don't send threats. As far as I'm concerned, I no longer have a father. She left before he could respond. Walked through the house where she'd grown up, past servants who stared but didn't speak, out into the rain. Only when she was 2 blocks away did she start shaking. She'd just declared war on her own father, burned the last bridge she had. And for what? A marriage that might already be over, a husband who'd looked at her like she was a problem he couldn't solve. Clara found a bench in a small park, sat down despite the rain, let the water wash over her while she tried to figure out what to do next. She couldn't go back to the hotel, couldn't face Sebastian yet, didn't know if he'd even want to see her after what she'd revealed. Duchess? Clara looked up. A figure stood under an umbrella, face obscured by the darkness and rain. Then he stepped closer, and she saw Davenport. Her blood went cold. What are you doing here? Following you. I saw you leave your father's house. He smiled, that same entitled smile that haunted her nightmares. You looked upset. Thought you might need company. Clara stood. Stay away from me. Or what? You'll have your husband punch me again? Davenport laughed. He's not here now. No one is. Just you and me. He moved closer. Clara backed up, calculating escape routes. The park was empty. No one around to hear her scream. I warned you, Davenport said conversationally. Told you marrying Blackthorn wouldn't protect you. And look, I was right. Here you are. Alone. Vulnerable. Touch me and You'll what? He grabbed her wrist. Scream? Go ahead. No one cares what happens to ruined women in the dark. Clara tried to pull away. His grip tightened, and then a voice cut through the rain like a blade. Let her go. Sebastian stepped out of the shadows, his face a mask of controlled fury. Davenport's smile faltered. Blackthorn. You thought wrong. Sebastian moved closer. Release my wife. Now. This doesn't concern you. Sebastian's fist connected with Davenport's face for the second time in 2 days. The younger man went down hard, sprawling in the mud. Clara stumbled back. Sebastian caught her, pulled her behind him. I told you what would happen if you came near her again, Sebastian said quietly. Did you think I was joking? Davenport touched his bleeding mouth. You can't keep doing this. Can't I? Sebastian hauled him up by his collar. Let's be clear, you come near Clara again. You speak her name, you look at her, you so much as think about her, and I will end you. Not metaphorically, not financially. I will put you in the ground. You're threatening to kill me? You're a duke. I'm a desperate man with nothing left to lose, which makes me very dangerous. Sebastian shoved him back. Now get out of my sight before I forget I'm supposed to be civilized. Davenport scrambled away, half running through the rain. Sebastian turned to Clara. His hands found her shoulders, steadying her. Are you hurt? No, Her voice broke. How did you find me? I followed you. He pulled off his coat, wrapped it around her shoulders. Did you really think I'd let you face your father alone? Clara stared at him. You heard? Enough. I was outside the study window. Sebastian's expression shifted. Clara, what you said to your father was stupid and reckless and probably just made everything worse. Was the bravest thing I've ever heard. Clara froze. What? You stood up to him, cut him off, protected us both. Sebastian cupped her face gently. I spent the last hour thinking I'd lost you. That you'd go back to your father, agree to his terms, disappear from my life, and instead you told him to go to hell. I couldn't let him control me anymore. I know, and I'm sorry. For what? For hesitating, for making you think I didn't. He stopped, started again. When you told me about Davenport, about the rumors, I panicked, saw all the complications, all the ways it could destroy us. But I should have seen what actually mattered, which is that you're brilliant and brave and you've been fighting this battle alone for years, and His voice roughened. I love you, I think I have for weeks, and I'm done pretending this is just a transaction. The words hung in the rain-soaked air between them. Clara couldn't breathe. You love me? Yes? Even knowing everything, the lies, the rumors, the scandal, especially knowing everything. Sebastian pulled her close. I married you thinking I was getting a business arrangement. Instead, I got someone who challenges me, infuriates me, and somehow makes me want to be better than I am. So yes, I love you, and I'm choosing you over everything else. Clara felt tears mixing with the rain on her face. Sebastian, let me finish. Pemberton can have Ashford. Your father can spread his rumors. Davenport can rot. None of it matters if I lose you. He wiped her tears with his thumb. So, I'm making a choice. A bold one. You, just you. Whatever comes after, we face it together. We'll lose everything. Then we'll rebuild, somewhere else, as someone else. He smiled slightly. I'm a duke. You're a duchess. We can survive anything. Clara grabbed his face, kissed him hard, poured everything she'd been feeling, the fear, the anger, the desperate hope, into that kiss. When they finally pulled apart, Sebastian rested his forehead against hers. We should get out of the rain. Probably, but neither of them moved. I have an idea, Sebastian said. About Pemberton, about the debt. What kind of idea? A terrible one, but it might work. He took her hand. Come on, we need to get back to the hotel. We have work to do. They spent the night plotting. Sebastian's idea was insane, risky, possibly illegal, but it was all they had. Pemberton wants revenge, he explained, spreading papers across the hotel room desk. He wants to destroy the Blackthorn name, but what he wants more is money. He's a businessman first. So? So we give him something better than Ashford, something worth more. Sebastian pulled out a map. The railroad deal. If it goes through, that marshland is worth £60,000, double what we owe Pemberton. Clara frowned. But we were using that to pay off the debts. We were. Now we're using it as leverage. He marked the map with quick, decisive strokes. We go to Pemberton. Tell him we're defaulting on the loan. Let him think he's won. Then we offer him a choice. Take Ashford for $30,000 in debt, or take a 50% stake in the railroad deal for the same price. He will if we make it irresistible. We tell him the railroad's already agreed to $50,000, which is true, based on the preliminary offer. We tell him our share is $25,000 after fees, which is a lie, but he won't know that until the deal closes. And we offer him half, $12,500, in exchange for forgiving the full $30,000 debt. Clara saw where he was going. He thinks he's getting a premium on his money and avoiding the mess of foreclosure. No lawyers, no public scandal, just a quiet business transaction where he comes out ahead. But we're not actually giving him $12,000. We're giving him $5,000, maybe $6,000, after the real fees and costs. Sebastian's smile was sharp. By the time he realizes the deal wasn't as profitable as we claimed, the debt's forgiven, and we're clear. That's fraud. That's negotiation. We're not lying about the total sale price, just being optimistic about the breakdown. He met her eyes. Is it risky? Yes. Could it backfire? Absolutely. But it's better than losing everything. Clara turned it over in her mind, looked for the holes, the places it could fall apart. What if the railroad deal falls through entirely? Then we're no worse off than we are now. Pemberton forecloses, we lose Ashford anyway. And if he checks the numbers before agreeing? He won't. He's arrogant, thinks we're desperate and stupid. He'll see an opportunity to profit off our desperation and take it. Clara paced the room. This could destroy us. We're already destroyed. This is our last shot. She stopped, looked at him. You're willing to bet everything on a con? I'm willing to bet everything on us. Sebastian stood, crossed to her. You told your father tonight that you were done being afraid. I'm done too. Done playing by rules that were rigged against us from the start. If we're going down, let's go down swinging. Clara felt something settle in her chest. A decision. A commitment. All right, we do it your way. Our way. Our way. She took his hand. When do we approach him? Tomorrow morning, early, before he has time to think too hard about it. Sebastian pulled her close. Tonight, we rest. Tomorrow, we fight. They didn't rest. Instead, they spent the hours before dawn going over every detail, rehearsing the pitch, anticipating objections, building the lie until it felt like truth. By the time the sun rose, they were ready. Pemberton received them at 9 sharp. He looked smug when they entered, clearly expecting surrender. Duke Sebastian, Duchess, I assume you've reconsidered my offer? We have, Sebastian said. We're prepared to default on the loan. Pemberton's smile widened. Wise choice. I'll have my solicitor draw up the transfer papers. We're not giving you Ashford. The smile froze. Excuse me? We're defaulting. You're welcome to foreclose. Take us to court. Seize the estate through legal channels. Sebastian sat down, utterly calm. But that'll take months, maybe years, and you'll spend a fortune in legal fees fighting us every step of the way. You can't win. We don't need to win. We just need to make it expensive and public and embarrassing. Sebastian leaned back. Or you can take our alternative offer. Pemberton's eyes narrowed. What offer? Clara stepped forward, placing the documents on his desk. We have a contract pending with the London Northern Railroad. 300 acres of marshland on Ashford's eastern border. Sale price £60,000. I'm aware. What does that have to do with, after fees, taxes, and costs, we're looking at approximately $25,000 in profit. We're offering you half, £12,500. In exchange for forgiving the 30,000 debt. Pemberton stared at her. You want me to forgive 30,000 for 12,000? You're not forgiving anything. You're making a strategic investment. Clara opened the contract. The railroad deal closes in 6 weeks, guaranteed. You get 12,500 in cash, real money, not distressed property, and you walk away clean. No foreclosure, no legal battles, no risk. And you get to keep Ashford. We get to survive. You get to profit. Everyone wins. Pemberton picked up the contract. Read it carefully. Clara held her breath, waiting for him to spot the deception. But the numbers were real enough. The sale price was accurate. Only the breakdown of fees was inflated. Why offer me this? Pemberton asked. Why not just sell the land and pay me directly? Because we need operating capital, Sebastian said smoothly. The remaining 12,000 keeps Ashford running while we rebuild, pays the staff, repairs the roof. We could pay you the full 30 and be bankrupt in a month, or we can settle the debt and actually have a future. And you think I care about your future? I think you care about profit, and this deal gives you a 40% return in 6 weeks with zero effort on your part. Clara met his eyes. That's better than any investment you'll find in London. Pemberton was quiet, turning it over. Clara could see the calculations running through his mind. The greed warring with suspicion, the desire to crush them fighting against the desire to make easy money. I want to see the railroad's preliminary agreement, he said finally. Sebastian handed it over. Everything's there, signed and dated. Pemberton read. Clara watched his expression shift from skeptical to interested. This is legitimate. Completely. The railroad's lawyers reviewed it last week. We're just waiting on final board approval. And if they don't approve? Then the deal falls through and you foreclose. Like I said, you're no worse off than you are now. Sebastian's tone was reasonable, logical. But if it goes through, you make money, and we both move on with our lives. Pemberton set down the contract, steepled his fingers. I want 60%. No. Clara didn't hesitate. 50-50, or we let you foreclose. You're in no position to negotiate. We're in the only position that matters. You want easy money, this is the price. Take it or leave it. Pemberton's eyes hardened. For a moment, Clara thought they'd pushed too hard, that he'd call their bluff out of pure spite. Then he smiled, cold and calculating. Fine, 50%, but I want it in writing. And if this deal falls through, I get Ashford and everything in it. No appeals, no delays. Agreed. Sebastian extended his hand. Do we have a deal? Pemberton stared at the offered hand. The room was silent except for the ticking of the clock on the mantel. Then he took it. We have a deal, Pope said. They left Pemberton House in a daze, made it 2 blocks before Clara started laughing. Not gentle amusement, wild, slightly hysterical relief. We did it, she gasped. We actually did it. Sebastian pulled her into an alley, kissed her hard. You were incredible. The way you handled those numbers. We lied to a lord. We're going to hell. We're going to survive. He kissed her again. And when the railroad deal actually closes, when Pemberton realizes he's getting 5,000 instead of 12, he'll be furious. But the debt will be forgiven, legally binding. He can't touch us. Sebastian's grin was fierce. We won, Clara. We actually won. She wanted to celebrate, wanted to believe it was over, but there was still one problem. My father. He still has the power to annul our marriage. Sebastian's expression sobered. Not if we move first. What do you mean? We make you untouchable. We go public with our version of events before he can spread his. He took her hands. We tell London that Davenport assaulted you, that you spread rumors to protect yourself, that your father tried to force the match anyway. We paint you as the victim who escaped, not the scandal who lied. No one will believe. They will if we control the narrative. We have witnesses. The servants at that house party. The people who saw Davenport follow you. We build a case that's more compelling than your father's lies. Sebastian's voice was firm. And we do it now, today, before he has a chance to strike first. Clara's mind raced. It was risky, public, would drag every painful detail of her past into the light, but it was also the only way to neutralize her father's threat. How do we start? We find a journalist, someone reputable who'll print our story. We give them everything, dates, details, names. We make it impossible for your father to spin it differently. And if it backfires, if they twist it against us, then we deal with it together. Sebastian cupped her face. I'm not afraid of scandal anymore, Clara. I'm only afraid of losing you. She kissed him, soft and slow and full of gratitude. All right, let's tell our story. On. They found Marcus Pemberton, no relation to Lord Pemberton, at the London Herald's offices. He was a journalist with a reputation for exposing corruption and a nose for stories that sold papers. He listened to their account with growing interest, taking notes with quick, precise strokes. This is explosive, what? He said when they finished. Assault, blackmail. A shipping magnate selling his daughter. The public will eat it up. We're not doing this for entertainment, Clara said firmly. We're doing it to tell the truth. The truth sells, Your Grace, especially when it involves powerful people behaving badly. Pemberton, Marcus, tapped his pen. But I'll need proof. Witnesses. Documentation. Sebastian produced a folder. Everything's here. Servant testimonies from the house party where Davenport assaulted Clara. Letters from him after she spread the rumors, threatening her. Financial records showing Edmund Whitmore's debts to the Davenport family. Marcus flipped through the pages. His eyebrows rose. Where did you get these? I still have friends in society. People who saw what happened and were willing to talk. Anonymously, for now. This is solid. Marcus looked up. But you understand what you're doing. Once this prints, there's no taking it back. Your father will retaliate. Davenport will sue. Society will take sides. Let them, Clara said. I'm done hiding. Marcus smiled slightly. Brave words, Your Grace. Let's hope you mean them. He stood. I'll have this ready for tomorrow's edition, front page, and I'll make sure the story gets picked up nationally. Thank you, Sebastian said. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get ugly before it gets better. Marcus walked them to the door. But for what it's worth. I think you're doing the right thing. People like your father, like Davenport, they only have power because no one challenges them. It's about time someone did. Quote. The story broke the next morning. Clara woke to Sebastian reading the paper, his expression unreadable. Is it bad? He handed it to her. The headline screamed, Duchess of Ashford speaks out, a story of assault, blackmail, and a father's betrayal. Clara read through it with shaking hands. Marcus had done exactly what he'd promised, told their story with brutal honesty. Included every detail, every witness, every piece of evidence. By noon, London was on fire with it. The hotel staff brought up a stack of calling cards, people wanting to express support, outrage, curiosity. Clara's hand shook as she read through them. Lady Thornbury, apologizing for her comments at the wedding. The Duchess of Somerset, offering her friendship. A dozen other women, some Clara had never met, sharing their own stories of assault and forced marriages and fathers who'd valued connections over their daughter's safety. It's working, Sebastian said quietly. People are listening. But a knock interrupted them. A messenger with a telegram. Sebastian opened it. His expression darkened. What is it? Your father. He's calling a press conference this afternoon. Says he's going to refute the allegations. Clara's stomach dropped. He's going to fight back. Of course he is. We just declared war. Sebastian set down the telegram. But we have something he doesn't. What? The truth. And people who believe us. He took her hand. We need to be there. At his press conference. We face him publicly. Make him answer for what he did. Clara's heart pounded. You want to confront him? In front of the press? I want to give you the chance to stand up for yourself. Publicly. So there's no doubt whose side the truth is on. Sebastian's eyes were steady. But only if you're ready. I'll understand if... I'm ready. Clara squeezed his hand. Let's finish this. Edmund Whitmore's press conference was held at his shipping company's headquarters. The conference room was packed with journalists, society figures, curious onlookers. Clara and Sebastian entered just as Edmund was taking the stage. His eyes found them immediately. Fury flickered across his face before he masked it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. I'm here to address the slanderous accusations printed in this morning's Herald. He held up the paper. My daughter Clara has been manipulated by her husband into telling lies about me and Lord Davenport. The truth is you tried to sell me, Clara called out. The room went silent. Every head turned. Edmund's jaw clenched. Clara, it's Duchess Ashford, and I'm not finished. Clara walked to the front, Sebastian beside her. You tried to force me into a marriage with a man who assaulted me. When I refused, you disowned me. And when I found another way to survive, you threatened to destroy me. Hatish, that's not... We have proof. Sebastian stepped forward, placing documents on the table. Dated letters from Davenport, witness statements, financial records showing your debts. All of it verified and signed. A journalist grabbed the papers, started reading. Others crowded around. Edmund's face went red. Those are forgeries. They're not, Clara said quietly. And you know it. Just like you know what Davenport did to me. What you tried to make me accept. You were ruined. I was trying to save your reputation. You were trying to save your business connections. Clara's voice rose. I was your daughter. You were supposed to protect me. Instead, you sold me to the highest bidder and called it love. The room erupted. Journalists shouting questions, people arguing, the carefully controlled narrative Edmund had tried to build crumbling in real time. I didn't raise you to be ungrateful. You didn't raise me at all. You trained me, like an asset. Mati. Clara felt tears on her face but didn't wipe them away. But I'm not an asset anymore. I'm a person, and I'm done letting you control my life. She turned and walked out. Sebastian followed. Behind them, the conference room dissolved into chaos. They made it to the street before Clara's legs gave out. Sebastian caught her, held her while she shook. It's over, he said quietly. You did it. He'll retaliate. Find some way to... Let him try. Sebastian pulled back, looked at her. The story's out. London knows. And they're on your side. I've already seen 3 editorials calling for an investigation into Davenport. Your father can't touch you now. Clara let herself believe it, let herself feel the weight lifting. A carriage pulled up. Mrs. Brennan climbed out, looking flustered. Your Grace, I came as soon as I heard. The railroad. They've agreed. The deal's closed. Clara's heart stopped. What? The contract. They signed this morning. £50,000. The funds will be transferred by the end of the week. Mrs. Brennan smiled. Ashford is saved. Sebastian started laughing. Clara joined him. They stood on the street holding each other, laughing like fools, while London buzzed around them. We did it, Clara whispered. We actually did it. No, Sebastian said. You did it. You saved us. We saved each other. He kissed her. Right there on the street, in front of everyone. And Clara kissed him back, not caring who saw or what they thought. They'd survived, against fathers and debts and scandals and fire. They'd fought and lied and gambled everything. And somehow, impossibly, they'd won. They'd survived, against fathers and debts and scandals and fire. They'd fought and lied and gambled everything. And somehow, impossibly, they'd won. But standing on that London street, Clara knew winning was only the beginning. They still had to live with what they'd done, still had to face Pemberton when he realized the railroad deal hadn't paid out what they'd promised, still had to rebuild Ashford from ashes and broken promises. Sebastian seemed to read her thoughts. We should go home. Home. The word felt strange, foreign. Clara had spent most of her life not knowing where that was. But looking at Sebastian now, feeling his hand solid in hers, she thought maybe home wasn't a place at all. Yes, she said. Let's go home. Bounce. The journey back to Ashford took 4 hours. They sat in the train car watching England roll past, neither speaking much, both processing what they'd just survived. Clara's mind kept circling back to her father's face when she'd confronted him. The shock, the fury, the moment he'd realized he'd lost control of her for good. She should feel guilty, should feel some kind of daughterly remorse. She felt nothing but relief. Do you think he'll try again? She asked quietly. My father. To destroy us. Sebastian considered it. Maybe, probably, but he'll have a harder time now. The story's out. London knows what he did. Every move he makes will be scrutinized. He turned to her. And we're not the desperate nobodies we were a month ago. We have money now, influence, friends in the press. We can fight back. We, Clara repeated. I like the sound of that. Good, because you're stuck with me. Sebastian's expression softened. For better or worse, wasn't that the deal? I thought the deal was a transaction, clean and simple. Nothing about us has ever been clean or simple. He pulled her closer. And I wouldn't change a damn thing. Clara leaned into him, let herself feel safe for the first time in weeks. They still had battles ahead. Pemberton's rage when the railroad money came in lower than promised. Society's judgment. The enormous task of actually saving Ashford now that they had the means. But for now, on this train heading home, she let herself just be. Just exist in this moment with this man who'd chosen her when he could have walked away. The train pulled into the village station just as the sun was setting. Mrs. Brennan waited with the carriage, her expression carefully neutral, but Clara could see the relief in her eyes. Welcome home, your graces. Ashford Hall rose out of the twilight like something from a dream, still crumbling, still half dead. But theirs. Completely, undeniably theirs. Sebastian helped Clara down from the carriage. They stood at the base of the steps, looking up at the house. It's a disaster, Clara said. It's our disaster. We're going to have to gut half of it, rebuild the roof, repair the foundation. I know. It's going to take years, and all the money from the railroad deal, and probably more we don't have yet. I know. Sebastian turned to her. Are you having second thoughts? Clara looked at the house, at the broken windows and sagging stones and overgrown gardens. Then at Sebastian, this impossible, infuriating, complicated man she'd married in desperation and somehow fallen in love with. No, she said. No second thoughts. Just first thoughts about where to start. His smile was blinding. Then let's start with tonight. Tomorrow we can save the world. Tonight we celebrate not dying. Brate. Mrs. Brennan had prepared dinner. Nothing fancy. They still didn't have the staff for fancy. But there was roasted chicken and vegetables from the kitchen garden and wine that tasted like hope. They ate in the small dining room, the one that didn't echo with emptiness. Just the two of them in candlelight and the sound of rain starting outside. I should tell you something, Sebastian said halfway through the meal. Clara's stomach clenched. That sounds ominous. It's not. At least, I don't think it is. He set down his fork. When I married you, I told myself it was purely practical, money in exchange for a title, nothing personal. I remember. I lied. To you. To myself. He met her eyes. The moment you lifted that veil, the moment I saw you weren't what I expected, I knew I was in trouble. And every day since has just made it worse. Worse? Worse. Better. More complicated. He reached across the table, took her hand. I didn't plan to fall in love with you, Clara, but I did. And now I don't know how to be the person I was before. Cold and controlled and alone. You ruined me for that. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. Good, because you ruined me too. I came here thinking I could stay distant, keep my walls up, survive without actually living. And you... Her voice cracked. You made me want more, want better. Want a life that wasn't just survival. What do you want now? Clara thought about it, really thought. I want to fix this house. I want to prove everyone wrong about us. I want to wake up in 50 years and know that we built something real. She squeezed his hand. And I want to do it with you, not because I have to, because I choose to. Sebastian stood, came around the table, pulled her up and into his arms. Marry me, he said. Clara laughed. We're already married. Then marry me again, properly this time. Not a transaction, not a business deal, just us choosing each other. He cupped her face. What do you say? I say you're insane. Is that a yes? It's a definitely yes. He kissed her, slow and deep and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, Clara was breathless. When? She managed. Soon. As soon as we can arrange it. Small ceremony, just us and Mrs. Brennan and whoever else matters. No society, no performance, just real. I'd like that. Good. Sebastian kissed her forehead. Now finish your dinner. We have a long day tomorrow. The next morning brought a letter. Clara found it at breakfast, sealed with wax and marked urgent. She opened it with shaking hands. It was from Pemberton. Duke Sebastian, the railroad funds have been transferred. I've reviewed the accounting. We need to discuss the discrepancy immediately. Come to Pemberton House this afternoon or I will take legal action. Pemberton. Clara's blood went cold. He knows, Sebastian read over her shoulder. Of course he knows. We always knew he'd figure it out eventually. What do? We face him, like we face everything else. Sebastian's voice was calm, too calm. But this time, we do it on our terms. What does that mean? It means we don't go to Pemberton House. We invite him here. To Ashford. Make him see what he almost destroyed. Sebastian's eyes were hard. And then we give him a choice. Pemberton arrived that afternoon in a fury. He swept into Ashford Hall like a storm, his face red, his movements sharp with anger. You lied to me. The railroad deal. You said $25,000 in profit. You said my share was $12,000. I received $5,000. We said approximately $25,000, Claire corrected. After fees and costs, we never specified what those fees were. That's fraud. That's creative accounting, and before you threaten legal action, consider what that would look like. Sebastian gestured around the entrance hall. The great Lord Pemberton, suing a duke and duchess over a business deal that still paid out. You'd be a laughingstock. I don't care about mockery. I care about being cheated. You weren't cheated. You were outmaneuvered. Clara stepped forward. You wanted to destroy us. Wanted to take everything we had and grind us into dust. We stopped you. Using the same tactics you've used on others for years. Pemberton's jaw clenched. You have no idea what you've done. We know exactly what we've done. We've survived you, and now we're offering you a choice. Sebastian's voice was steel. You can sue us, spend the next year in court, airing every detail of this mess publicly. Probably lose because we have documentation showing every number we gave you was technically accurate. Or, Pemberton bit out. Or you accept the $5,000 as payment in full for the debt. We sign a release. You walk away. No lawsuits, no scandal, no more interaction between us ever again. You're offering me my own money back. We're offering you an exit, with your dignity intact. Clara met his eyes. You wanted revenge on the Blackthorns. You got it. Sebastian's father is dead. This house nearly fell. We almost lost everything. But we survived, and now you have a choice. Accept that we're equals or spend the rest of your life trying to prove you're better, while the world watches you fail. The silence stretched. Pemberton looked around the hall, at the peeling wallpaper and cracked marble and visible signs of decay, then back at them. You think you've won. We know we have, Sebastian said quietly. The question is whether you're smart enough to recognize it. Pemberton's expression was unreadable. Then, slowly, he pulled out a document from his coat. This is the original loan agreement. Sign it as paid in full, and I'll walk away. Sebastian took the document, scanned it, looked at Clara. She nodded. He signed, handed it back. Pemberton folded it carefully. You're right. I wanted to destroy you. Your father ruined mine, and I wanted you to feel that same helplessness, that same shame. He paused. But your father was a monster, and you're just trying to survive what he left behind. I can respect that. It wasn't an apology, but it was close. So we're done? Claire asked. We're done. Pemberton walked toward the door, stopped, turned back. For what it's worth, Duchess, your father's business is collapsing. The shipping contracts he relied on are falling through. The Davenport family has cut ties. He'll be bankrupt within 6 months. Clara felt nothing, no satisfaction, no vindication, just a hollow sense that some battles weren't worth winning. Thank you for telling me. Pemberton nodded. Left without another word. The door closed. Clara and Sebastian stood in the entrance hall, listening to the carriage pull away. It's really over, Clara said. It's really over. She turned to him. What do we do now? Sebastian smiled. Now? Now we rebuild. Tegan. The work began the next day. They hired contractors, masons, carpenters, brought in engineers to assess the foundation and architects to design the repairs. The house filled with noise and sawdust and the sound of hammers on stone. Clara threw herself into it, managed the budgets, negotiated with suppliers, found cheaper materials that looked just as good. She worked 16-hour days, her hands blistered, her dresses covered in dust, completely and utterly alive. Sebastian worked beside her. Not the cold, distant duke she'd married, but someone real. Someone who got his hands dirty and argued with contractors and laughed when things went wrong. They fought. Of course they fought. Clara wanted to restore the formal gardens. Sebastian thought they should focus on the tenant farms. Sebastian wanted to keep 3 extra servants. Clara said they couldn't afford it. They yelled and slammed doors and said things they regretted. And then they made up, every single time. Because underneath the arguments was something solid, something that couldn't be broken by disagreement or stress or the million tiny disasters that came with saving a dying estate. 3 months into the restoration, the roof was repaired. 6 months in, the West Wing was livable again. A year after the wedding, Ashford Hall was transformed. Not perfect, not the grand estate it had been in its prime, but solid, real, a house that worked instead of just existing. The gardens bloomed, not manicured and formal like before, but wild and beautiful in their own way. Clara had insisted on keeping some of the overgrowth, turning it into a kind of organized chaos that felt more honest than perfection. The tenant farms flourished. Sebastian had renegotiated the leases, giving the farmers better terms in exchange for higher productivity. It worked. The estate actually turned a profit for the first time in a decade, and the household, small but efficient, ran smoothly under Mrs. Brennan's management. She'd warmed to Clara over the months, the two of them developing a grudging respect that occasionally even looked like friendship. "You've done well," Mrs. Brennan said one morning, surveying the repaired entrance hall. "Better than I expected, if I'm honest. High praise from you. Don't let it go to your head, Your Grace." But the housekeeper's expression was soft. "The house feels alive again. That's your doing." "Ours," Clara corrected. "Mine and Sebastian's and yours, and everyone who stayed when they could have left. We did this together." Mrs. Brennan nodded. "Just like a real family." The word hit Clara harder than expected. Family. She'd given up on having one of those, had resigned herself to being alone, untethered, belonging nowhere. But standing in this house they'd saved together, surrounded by people who'd fought beside them, maybe family wasn't about blood. Maybe it was about choice, about the people you stood with when everything fell apart. The second wedding happened on a quiet Tuesday in October. No grand cathedral, no 300 guests. Just the small chapel on the estate grounds, with Mrs. Brennan and a handful of servants as witnesses. Clara wore a simple dress, cream-colored, no veil, no pretense. Sebastian wore his everyday suit. They stood in front of the minister, hands clasped, and said the same vows they'd said a year ago. But this time, they meant them. "I do," Sebastian said, his voice steady and sure. "I do," Clara echoed. The minister pronounced them husband and wife, again, and they kissed like it was the first time, like they were choosing each other all over again, only this time with full knowledge of what that choice meant. Mrs. Brennan dabbed at her eyes. The groundskeeper cleared his throat suspiciously hard. Even the cook, who claimed to hate sentiment, looked misty. They had a small celebration afterward, cake that the cook had made, wine from the cellar, dancing in the library because it was the only room big enough. Sebastian pulled Clara close, swaying to music only they could hear. "Happy?" he asked. Terrified, exhausted, probably insane. She smiled. "But yes, happy. Good, because I have news." "What kind of news?" "The kind that changes everything." Sebastian's expression was careful. "I've been offered a position on the King's Council. Advisory role focused on estate management and agricultural reform. It comes with a salary and influence." Clara pulled back. That's incredible. Why don't you sound excited? Because it means spending time in London, away from Ashford, away from you, if you don't come with me. He searched her face. I haven't accepted yet. Wanted to discuss it with you first. A year ago, Sebastian would have made this decision alone, would have seen Clara as a complication to work around rather than a partner to consult. The fact that he was asking now, that he saw her opinion as equal to his own, meant everything. Take it, Clara said. Are you sure? Absolutely. This is what you've been working toward, a chance to influence policy, to help other estates avoid what we went through. She touched his face. And I'll come with you. We'll split our time. London when we need to be there. Ashford when we can. We'll make it work. Together. Always together. Clara kissed him. That's the deal, remember? Best deal I ever made. They moved to London that winter, kept a small house in Mayfair, nothing extravagant, nothing they couldn't afford, and Sebastian took his position on the council. He was brilliant at it. Clara watched him negotiate with other lords, convince skeptics, push through reforms that actually helped struggling estates. He'd learned from their own battle with bankruptcy, and he used that knowledge to save others. Clara found her own purpose, started working with women who'd been forced into marriages like hers had almost been, helped them find legal recourse, financial independence, escape routes when they needed them. She thought about her own escape often, about the desperate choice she'd made to spread those rumors, about marrying Sebastian thinking it was just survival. She'd been so focused on not drowning that she hadn't realized she could learn to swim. Now she taught others, showed them that survival wasn't the end game, that they could want more, build more, be more. And slowly, grudgingly, society accepted them. Not everyone. Some still whispered about Clara's past, about the scandal with Davenport, about Sebastian's near bankruptcy. But enough people saw what they'd accomplished, saw the love that was so obviously real that the whispers didn't matter. They were invited to dinners, balls, events they'd been excluded from before. Clara attended with her head high, Sebastian's hand solid in hers, and refused to apologize for anything they'd done to survive. One night, at a gala hosted by the Duchess of Somerset, Lady Thornbury approached them, the same woman who'd made snide comments at their wedding. Duchess Ashford, I wanted to apologize. Clara blinked. For what? For my behavior at your wedding, and after. I made assumptions, spread gossip. I was unkind. Lady Thornbury looked genuinely contrite. What you've accomplished, both of you, it's remarkable. And I was wrong to doubt you. It wasn't much, just a small acknowledgement from one woman in a sea of hundreds. But Clara felt something shift inside her. Thank you, she said simply. Lady Thornbury nodded, moved away. Sebastian looked down at Clara. How does it feel, being proven right? Strange, satisfying, a little hollow, honestly. Clara watched the ballroom full of people who'd once looked down on her. I spent so long fighting to be accepted. Now that I am, I'm not sure I care anymore. What do you care about? Clara thought about it. You, Ashford, the women I'm helping, building something that matters. She smiled. Turns out acceptance isn't the prize. Living well is. Living well is the best revenge, Sebastian quoted. Something like that. They danced, laughed, left early because they'd learned that society events weren't actually that important, that the real life they were building happened in quiet moments, in choosing each other every day, in the small, unglamorous work of being partners. 2 years after their first wedding, Clara discovered she was pregnant. She told Sebastian in the library at Ashford, the room where they'd fought and made up and plotted their survival, where they'd rebuilt not just a house but themselves. He stared at her. Pregnant. Yes. You're sure? Very sure. Sebastian sat down heavily. We're going to have a child. We are. Clara watched him process it. Are you happy? Terrified? Both? Both. Definitely both. He looked up at her. Are you? Completely terrified. Absolutely thrilled. She sat beside him. I have no idea how to be a mother. My own mother died when I was young. My father was, well, you know what he was. We'll figure it out, like we figured out everything else. By lying and gambling and barely surviving? Sebastian laughed. Hopefully with slightly better planning this time. He pulled her close. But yes, we'll make mistakes. We'll fight about how to raise them. We'll have no idea what we're doing most of the time, and we'll do it together. Together, Clara repeated. I like the sound of that. Their daughter was born in the spring. They named her Elizabeth, after Sebastian's mother. She was loud, demanding, impossibly tiny, and yet somehow took up all the space in their lives. Clara loved her with a fierceness that terrified her. Sebastian was a surprisingly good father, patient where Clara was anxious, calm where she panicked. They took turns walking Elizabeth when she cried at night, both exhausted, both completely in love. I never thought I'd have this, Sebastian said one night, holding Elizabeth while she slept. A family, something real. Neither did I. Clara leaned against him. I thought I'd spend my life running, hiding, surviving but never actually living. What changed? You, this place, the choice to stop being afraid. She looked at their daughter. And her. Knowing we made something good out of all that chaos. Sebastian kissed her temple. We make a pretty good team. The best. 5 years after that terrible wedding, Ashford Hall had been completely transformed. The house stood solid and proud. The gardens flourished. The tenant farms thrived. The estate turned consistent profits that funded not just their own needs but initiatives to help other struggling families. Clara ran a foundation from the library, helped women escape bad situations, funded education, created opportunities where there'd been none before. It wasn't glamorous work, but it mattered. Sebastian continued his council work, pushed through reforms, changed laws, made a real difference in how estates were managed and inherited. They fought sometimes, still had terrible arguments about money and priorities and how to raise Elizabeth, but they'd learned how to fight without destroying each other, how to disagree and still be partners. And they loved, fiercely, imperfectly, without any of the pretense or performance that had marked their first wedding. One evening, as the sun set over Ashford's gardens, Clara and Sebastian stood on the terrace watching Elizabeth play with the groundskeeper's children. Do you ever regret it? Clara asked. Marrying me. The whole disaster that started this. Sebastian was quiet for a moment. I regret that we both had to suffer so much to get here, that you had to create those rumors, that I had to nearly lose everything, that we started from such a desperate place. But I don't regret you, us, what we built together. He turned to her. We were both drowning when we met, and somehow we learned to swim. That's worth something. It's worth everything. They watched Elizabeth run through the gardens, wild and free and completely loved. A child who'd never know the desperation that had brought her parents together, who'd grow up in a house filled with love instead of obligation. We did it, Clara said softly. We survived. We rebuilt. We won. We did more than that. Sebastian pulled her close. We turned a transaction into a partnership, a marriage of convenience into something real, a disaster into a home. Clara leaned into him, feeling the solid weight of everything they'd created. Not bad for two desperate people who lied their way to the altar. Not bad at all. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting Ashford's stones in gold and amber. The house that had nearly killed them, that they'd saved through sheer stubbornness and risk and refusing to give up. Elizabeth called out, asking them to come play. They went, hand in hand, leaving behind the ghosts of who they'd been, the cold duke and the desperate woman, the transaction that should have stayed simple. Instead, they'd become something neither had planned for, something messy and complicated and entirely their own. They'd become family. And in the end, standing in the gardens of Ashford Hall with their daughter laughing and the evening light soft around them, Clara realized something she'd never quite let herself believe before. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was home. Home. Years later, when people asked about the Duke and Duchess of Ashford, they told different stories. Some remembered the scandal, the rumors, the dramatic wedding and the public confrontations. Others spoke of the reforms Sebastian championed, the foundation Clara built. The way they'd transformed not just an estate, but an entire approach to marriage and partnership in their circles. But those who knew them best, Mrs. Brennan, now retired but still visiting, the servants who'd stayed through the worst, the women Clara had helped and the families Sebastian had saved, they told a different story. They talked about two broken people who'd found each other in the wreckage, who'd built something real from lies and desperation, who'd proven that sometimes the worst beginnings could lead to the best endings, that survival wasn't the goal, living was, and that love, real, complicated, hard-fought love, was worth every terrible choice they'd made to find it. Sebastian and Clara never told their story publicly, never wrote memoirs or gave interviews. They just lived, raised their daughter, and eventually two more children, fought and loved, and built a life that felt true. And when they were old, sitting in the library at Ashford on a quiet afternoon, Sebastian asked the same question Clara had asked him years before. "Do you regret any of it?" Clara thought about the girl she'd been, desperate enough to destroy her own reputation, terrified enough to marry a stranger, broken enough to think survival was the best she could hope for. Then she looked at Sebastian, at the life they'd built, at Ashford standing strong around them. "Not a single moment," she said. And she meant it, because sometimes the worst decisions led to the best lives. Sometimes desperation was just courage in disguise. And sometimes a marriage built on lies became the truest thing you'd ever known. They'd survived everything the world threw at them, the debts, the scandals, the fathers and enemies, and their own worst instincts. And in the end, they didn't just survive, they thrived. Together, always together. That was the real victory. Not the money or the status or the estate they'd saved, but the choice they kept making every single day to stay, to fight, to love each other through the disasters and the triumphs and everything in between. The Duke and Duchess of Ashford, who'd started as strangers at an altar bound by desperation, and ended as partners, as lovers, as proof that even the most broken things could be made whole again, if you were willing to fight for them.